conditioning of all those briefing questions is really good.
Good morning. I call to order the September meeting of the Board of Regents. Provost Hanson, would you come to the podium to introduce Dr. Danita Brown-Young?
I'm very pleased, thank you, Chair Beeson, to introduce Danita Brown-Young, who joined the University of Minnesota at the end of July as our new Vice Provost for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Dr. Brown-Young brings to the job a breadth of experience that well equips her for maintaining and enhancing the excellence of our Office for Student Affairs, and she's plunged into her new leadership role with great enthusiasm and energy. Before moving to Minnesota this summer, she spent 5 years at Purdue University, where she became Dean of Students in March of 2011, after serving 3 years as Associate Dean of Students for counseling. She previously held positions as Interim Dean of Students at West Virginia University of Parkersburg, as Associate Director of Campus Life at Ohio University, and as Program Coordinator for Student Activities and Leadership at Loyola University of Chicago. Dr. Brown-Young has worked in crisis management, mediation, counseling, and academic advising, student advocacy, teaching, fiscal management, strategic planning, and leadership and policy development. In each of her positions, she's been active in many institutional and community committees. With a commitment to teamwork that embraces multiple constituencies, she has a record of success in working to achieve a shared vision and meet shared goals. A native of Ohio, Dr. Brown-Young received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and Psychology from Kent State University and a Master of Arts degree in Community Counseling from Loyola University of Chicago. She earned a PhD in Higher Education from Ohio University and is a licensed professional counselor. She's involved in many professional and educational organizations, including the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, the Association of Fraternity Advisors, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and Mortarboard National Honor Society. As Chief Student Affairs Officer, Dr. Brown-Young is responsible for providing vision, leadership, administrative oversight, and accountability for services and programs to advance student success, inspire students to contribute to society, promote an inclusive environment, and enrich the university community. On a personal note, as if a major career transition and cross-country move weren't challenge enough, Dr. Brown-Young also planned a wedding and got married in June. She's continued to demonstrate that same high level of energy and organization as she's embraced the varied responsibilities of her new position as Vice Provost and Dean. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Danita Brown as she joins our leadership team.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so pleased to be here, and I do want to thank Provost Hanson, President Kaler, and the Board of Regents for giving me this opportunity to join the University of Minnesota Twin Cities team. We, along with the Office for Student Affairs, we really believe in enhancing the student experience. So that is our major focus and our major goal. And how we do that is we make sure that we are engaging students, advocating for students, and supporting students so that they can be successful. So I am very pleased to be here, and I have a wonderful team, and I look forward to really partnering with everyone internally and external to our University of Minnesota system. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. Thank you, Provost Hanson, and welcome, Dr. Brown-Young. We certainly look forward to working with you. Let me confirm the presence of Regent Broad by teleconference. Regent Broad? Are you there yet? Okay. Not at the moment, but
Take that as a no.
I know she's making an effort to link into our meeting, so we'll move ahead. I'd like to present the minutes of the meeting for July. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. And good morning, President Kaler. Would you like to share your report with us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a happy semester to us all here. I think you feel, as I do, the September rush of energy, and it really does make this my favorite time of year. There's much to report and to share with you as this academic year kicks off. I am focused on several key priorities: launching our strategic planning process, furthering operational excellence, aggressively pursuing private philanthropy, improving our undergraduate experience, strengthening our partnership with the state, driving Minnesota's culture of innovation, preparing the state's workforce and the next generation of leaders, all while continuing to move to elevate everything we do. To further all of that, I'm regularly deploying all the lines of communications I can to keep you and others informed and to listen to concerns and ideas, and occasionally to receive a compliment or two about the university that brightens my day. I will continue to schedule monthly faculty lunches, regular academic department visits, and discussions with faculty and staff consultative committees. I will also continue regular office hours with students, which I especially enjoy. I'm eager to communicate more regularly with parents and alumni, too. On November 4th, I will hold a campus conversation on the Twin Cities campus, open to all, to provide a progress report on strategic planning and to answer any other questions, and I invite you all to attend. Another key area in which communications and relationships are important is the legislature. During the summer months, I met regularly with key legislative leaders to understand what's on their minds, to maintain our strong relationship, and to thank them for partnering with us in the last session. Meetings have gone well, and I've learned and shared much. As we approach the 2014 legislative session, which starts in February, and we begin to advocate for our capital request, which you'll hear about later, I will call on each of you to help me make our case. On the leadership front, searches for key positions are underway. We're entering the final stages of interviewing extremely strong candidates for a medical school dean and vice president of the Academic Health Center. We're deep into a search for a new dean of our Twin Cities Campus College of Liberal Arts. And as you know, Provost Hanson announced last week, we are exploring the creation of a new college on the Twin Cities campus, primarily from our College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences and our College of Biological Sciences. I believe such a consolidation could significantly strengthen our already strong departments in those colleges and advance our national reputation and impact. I do want to assure you and our partners, alumni, and friends in the agriculture community that this exploration in no way signals any diminution of our commitment to agriculture. Indeed, I believe that such a combination could significantly strengthen agricultural research, teaching, and outreach, but we certainly need a thorough exploration before making a final decision. The possibility of creating a new college that's focused on agriculture, natural resources, and life sciences has been discussed by leaders within the colleges for a while, even before Provost Hanson and I arrived on the scene. Given Dean Eldey's retirement and Dean Levine's decision to step down, this is a moment when it makes abundant sense to further that conversation, and Provost Hanson will lead that conversation. I'll note that our neighboring land-grant universities, Wisconsin and Madison and Iowa State, have successfully consolidated their colleges of agriculture and life sciences, and in so doing, strengthened departments in their overall research, teaching, and outreach agenda. Earlier this week, the Provost and I sent a letter to about 70 agriculture and food industry leaders to keep them informed. Tomorrow happens to be Ag and Food Day at the Gopher football game, and I, accompanied I know by some of you and our deans, will be meeting in the morning with industry leaders to discuss this exploration. On the athletics front, that was a nice segue, actually, notice that. I want to report something very important, and it's not just that our Gopher football team is undefeated, or our Gopher volleyball and soccer teams are undefeated, or the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldog football and volleyball teams are undefeated. But last month, at our Faculty Academic Oversight Committee on Intercollegiate Athletics, it was reported that our Gopher student athletes for all fall sports were academically eligible for their seasons, and none, not a single one, because of any special waivers, which have been common in intercollegiate athletics. And that is, as far as anybody can remember, a first for our athletes. It's a real tribute to the McNamara Academic Center and its director, Lynn Holleran, a tribute to our coaches and their staff, and mostly a tribute to our athletes who understand that what happens off the field is frankly more important than what happens on the field. Other points of pride across the system. Later this month, the new Green Prairie community will officially open in Morris, the first new residence hall on that campus since 1971. And in keeping with Morris's nation-leading sustainability mission, the Green Prairie community is, among other things, powered, heated, and cooled with renewable energy from the Morris campus on-site wind and biomass community-based energy systems. And in case you missed it, the University of Minnesota Morris was named again to the top 10 public liberal arts colleges by U.S. News, in ranks with West Point, Annapolis, and the U.S. Air Force Academy. So I congratulate Chancellor Johnson and her team. Later this afternoon in Duluth, the UMD grad Brian Kabilka, the 2012 Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, will be lecturing and meeting with students. It's going to be a very celebratory day on the UMD campus. I'm looking forward to being at UMD next week and conducting some student office hours there. Earlier this month, our Rochester campus welcomed 179 first-year students, its largest class ever, and a spectacular sign of growth and demand. You might recall in May, we graduated the first class from UMR, a class of 50, now replaced by 3 times as many new students. It's proof that that campus and the university's commitment to preparing students for Minnesota's healthcare workforce and confirmation of the success of Chancellor Lemkuhl's vision. At Crookston, there was national recognition too. U.S. News named the University of Minnesota Crookston the best regional college in the Midwest out of 367 schools. Congratulations to Chancellor Wood and the entire Crookston community, also now celebrating their 20th year of offering baccalaureate degrees. A few final notes. Before we meet again in October, we'll be celebrating homecoming on all of our campuses. The lovely Minnesota fall circling back to us once again. Homecoming is a chance for us to gather, remember, and enjoy. I urge you to participate in this ritual on whatever campus you choose and celebrate our maroon and gold community across the state. Also on October 6th, I will join a group of civic and business leaders, including Regents Beeson, Lucas, and Simmons, on an intercity leadership visit to Phoenix. We'll explore some regional issues, learn from Phoenix area leaders, and particularly, I'll be exploring how a large urban university, Arizona State, works with and enhances its metropolitan neighbors. At the conclusion of my remarks, you'll receive my work plan for the coming year, and you'll see among my goals a high priority to complete our Twin Cities campus strategic plan, and I'll update you on that process later this morning. We'll continue to engage our elected officials to demonstrate to them the importance and value of the U. We'll aggressively advance a compelling biennial capital request. We'll drive operational excellence, and that includes completing phase 2 of the spans and layers analysis and implementing results of benchmarking study, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We'll implement the new integrated structure with Fairview and advance the Ambulatory Care Center. We'll ensure MnDrive advances critical research in Minnesota, and we'll improve academic program reviews to invest in excellence and enhance the undergraduate educational experience. I welcome your feedback and input, and of course, I hope for your support. I must close on a note of great sadness because a visitor to the Twin Cities campus fell to her death last weekend in a terrible accident, and our condolences go to her family and friends. Vice Provost for Student Affairs, Danita Brown-Young, and I communicated with our students soon afterwards and stressed to them the importance of campus safety. And as we do every day, we need to redouble our efforts to keep all of our campuses safe and also encourage our students and visitors to the university to make good decisions. With that, Mr. Chair, I conclude my report.
Thank you, President Kaler. First, I would also like to welcome back students to all 5 of our campuses statewide. It is a delight to see our buildings and common areas come alive with activity again. A number of the Regents participated in the new student convocation, the Twin City campus, which was a festive and appropriate start to the new academic year. Earlier this summer, the board held its annual retreat in Red Wing, Minnesota. It was a great chance to plan for the year ahead. We also had the opportunity to visit with leaders from Red Wing Shoes and tour their manufacturing facility in the city. They spoke of how important it is to the business community to have a vibrant institution like the University of Minnesota in the state. And it was a good reminder of how important the U is to maintaining our quality of life. The retreat allowed us to establish our priorities for the year. Each year, the board highlights a small number of topics for special emphasis during the year ahead. These priorities are intended to assist the president and senior leadership group in advancing their work and guide agenda planning and development throughout the year. Therefore, the board's priorities for 2013-2014 are as follows. Number one, support the president's strategic planning process by articulating a clear vision, mission, and statement of values to inform the development of measurable goals, objectives, and strategies for moving the university forward. Number two, develop a tuition and financial aid philosophy that reinforces the twin objectives of excellence and access and directly guides the president's related strategies. Third, support the long-term success of the Academic Health Center. Fourth, continue to emphasize the importance of operational excellence initiatives designed to improve the efficiency and financial performance of the university. Last, continue to improve the effectiveness of the Board of Regents meetings and always adhere to good governance practices. I believe these are the right priorities for the board this year, and look forward to working with each of you, colleagues, and President Kaler to make substantial progress in these areas. Our next meeting of the Board of Regents is October 10th and 11th, and this concludes my report this morning. Next item on the agenda will be a report of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Regent Simmons.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee had a really robust time yesterday, and I'd like to share some highlights with you, not only what we approved and will recommend to you for approval, but some of the discussion items that informed us well and engaged us in our role in governance. First of all, the committee unanimously recommends approval of the revised consent report, which includes new academic programs, program additions, deletions, and discontinuations, and changes within programs. It includes approval of the Minnesota-North Dakota Public Higher Education Tuition Reciprocity Agreement. This agreement affects only Minnesota residents attending North Dakota public institutions and does not affect students attending the University of Minnesota. I move adoption of the revised consent report.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
We've developed an annual process of looking at all the academic program changes together to really try to understand trends. So the report we heard included some snapshots from some of our leaders from campuses, and I want to share some of those with you. The School of Public Health Dean John Finnegan provided an extraordinary report about activities within his college, and I'll just share a couple of those with you. This is a college that has a national and international market for students, and a college that is highly responsive to public needs, to the needs of the students in terms of preparing them to contribute to the public needs. So they've created new programs, they've grown programs, they've also paid close attention to the national scene and the economic factors that affect student preferences, attendance, and they've been able to compete very well as a top school in the nation for students from other states. That brings talent to Minnesota and further enhances the quality of this school. They have students from 48 states and 38 countries. It was a terrific report. We enjoyed it very much. We also heard an excellent story from University of Minnesota Duluth's Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Andrea Schocker, who explained that campus's structured efforts to prioritize programs in a way that allows them to manage and allocate financial resources to best address the needs of the students and the broader community. We changed the format in how we have a report from the coordinate campuses this year and linked their reports to the accountability report that we receive. and recognize the Regents' responsibility to each read the accountability report, but then it came to life in the reports that we had from our leaders. From Crookston, we learned about a student who'd received her associate's degree 30 years ago and is working towards completing her bachelor's degree online. We learned how 40% of students at Morris are first generation, and more about the campus's commitment to its liberal arts mission by building the critical and analytical thinking skills required for participation in a democratic society. Rochester has a Finish in 4 program, that is, graduate in 4 years, which drives its curriculum and really drives its culture in a positive way. The University of Minnesota Duluth has a pilot partnership with 2-year Lake Superior College, a MINSCU school. This program gives Lake Superior students the opportunity to participate in a full UMD campus life experience and the opportunity, when they've reached certain standards and accomplishments, the opportunity to transfer to be a UMD student. Also from the Twin Cities campus, we learned more from Vice Provost McMaster, including a fact I want to share with the full board, that the University of Minnesota is second in the Big Ten in terms of number of National Merit Scholars, falling only behind a private Northwestern. We talked with the provost, who serves our committee so well, on the issue of reports. This university generates an extraordinary number of reports, and I'll modify that by saying too many reports, and it's not their fault. We asked the board and our committee to look at what we really need as information in order to provide the oversight that our role requires. And we're going to try to work with the administration to tailor reports so indeed they are helpful and create and add value, and tailored to meet the needs of other bodies like the legislature, so we get the same data. And then, like all the committees, yesterday we reviewed our annual work plan, and our intent is to use the committee to engage in the strategic planning that the President has initiated in an appropriate way for the governing body. And we think we can be very effective, and fortunately the Provost and we have worked out, I think, a good way to do that. We also responded to the board's interest in making sure we're providing adequate governance and opportunity to understand and support the research mission of the university. And you know, our name changed, and so we're honoring our name change. We're the Academic and Student Affairs Committee, and academics is education and research, so we're looking forward to having more time with research leadership at our committee, and we'll of course share that with the board. Our meeting was great, and we're looking forward to October. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Simmons. Regent Broad, are you on the line with us yet?
I'm giving that report.
Yes.
I am, yes.
Okay, we'll acknowledge your presence. Regent Simmons, Vice Chair of the Audit Committee, will give that report.
Thank you. I'm sorry you have to hear me twice in a row, but it's easier with Regent Broad in the sky if I deliver our committee report. We do have an action item to bring to you. The committee unanimously recommends approval of the consent report, which includes an engagement with an external audit firm that exceeds the $25,000 threshold as required by our board policy. The university's Office of Student Affairs will engage Deloitte & Touche to perform agreed-upon procedures for certain student groups receiving allocations of student fees from the university. I move approval.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion over the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Audit committee is where you really get a perfect bird's eye view of the whole university. And we focused on a couple of things that I think are of importance to this whole board and to the university more broadly in this meeting. Associate Vice President Klatt, the auditor for the university, provided an overview of how they go about audit. We looked at the internal audit sort of as an update and particularly focused on process and unit audits. And I'll share some of that information with the full board. Since our last report in June, 47% of the outstanding audit recommendations rated as essential were implemented. This was above our target. 8 recommendations have yet to be implemented, and 5 recommendations we are delaying implementation because they really are going to be addressed, we believe, in the enterprise system upgrade, and so it would have at least duplicated work if we'd advanced the audits now, so we will return to those later after the implementation. The administration has accepted risk for 2 research-related recommendations. And we noted in the committee that when the administration accepts risk, we have to decide whether to accept that risk or not. We did, so that's done. Our auditor also provided a summary of the process audits that are going on, the results of those, and which are considered sort of best practice. This is best practice methodology, and the committee agreed this is a very good way to proceed and inform us. 16 process audits, including 4 of the most significant financial processes, including payroll, a big one, have been completed since 2011. Overall, units have a very good track record of compliance consistent with our board policies. A critical issue this board has discussed is the enterprise system upgrade project, and we are confident that the Office of Audit is well positioned for this. The current audit results will provide a baseline to evaluate the impact of this new system, process, policy, and changes. And then we had a report I don't remember having seen before that stimulated great interest and discussion, and I hope this will spill over to the other committees of the board as well. Vice President Fitzenreiter discussed the strategic financial risk profile of the university, highlighting several areas of risk. We liked knowing what keeps our chief financial officer up at night, and we learned. The business cycle of state government and the level of state support for the university would be right up there. The sustainability of the current undergraduate tuition model that has seen tuition double every 10 years. The role that auxiliary units play in supporting the operations of the university. And the impact of healthcare reform on the fringe benefits provided to employees by the university. This risk profile discussion was a new way of looking at things for us. We found it highly informative, and we would encourage the other committees to consider how they might integrate these keep me awake at night issues into their regular work. Our work plan for the audit committee will continue to really take responsibility and ownership to oversee the risk profile of the university. We will take on as important critical issues in the upcoming year the academic health center, academics broadly, and compliance in intercollegiate athletics, things that are on our red zones. And also, our committee would like to invite all the board members to come to our February meeting because we're going to have a discussion, presentations and discussion on the subject of the fiduciary responsibilities of nonprofit audit committee members. And we would think this is important for everyone on the board. We all carry a fiduciary responsibility. If we're lucky, we all get to serve on audit at some time during our tenure on the board. And so I think this will be valuable in our ongoing work and when we do serve on audit particularly. And finally, we noted an informational item on an emergency approval to PricewaterhouseCoopers for professional services related to the replacement of the university's existing legacy identity management system with Oracle Identity Management. That concludes the audit report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Regent Simmons. Next, we'll go to Regent Frobenius.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. I'd like to raise a sort of a question or a comment because I do think I qualify under Regent Simmons' definition of lucky, having served 10 years on that lucky committee. Lucky 10 years on that committee. But she referred to the heat map or risk profile that was presented by Vice President Fitzenreuter and suggested that that be worked on with other committees. I'd like to go back in history because there's a point here that I really think is important. Over the years, we have developed this risk profile, so-called heat map, to a fairly significant art within the audit committee, and identified really the areas of risk of the University of Minnesota. At one time, a number of years ago, we sort of informally asked the committees to look at their oversight functions in light of those profiles. And that sort of fell by the wayside among other priorities. I think now, that given the state of the art, achieving what Regent Simmons and the committee has recommended, not only in the financial area but in some other areas, is an item that should be given some further attention by this board. It's a way of focusing our oversight and to make the board be much more efficient and provide our oversight in a much more effective manner.
Thank you, Regent Frobenius. Regent Simmons.
Thank you for that comment. If I may respond, this report sort of slices things a little differently from the financial risk perspective, which I think is so important and such a good way to look at this. So may I ask that all of the committee chairs and the vice presidents that work with those committees receive a copy, and then they can, we hope, they'll want to say, aha, this is something we need to take on.
Thank you. Good discussion. Let's move forward then. The report of the Facilities and Operations Committee, Regent Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee had one action item, a real estate transaction. The committee voted unanimously to recommend acceptance of property in Oregon from the Landscape Development Center. I move its approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The committee then had several very important discussions. First of all, we looked at the components of the 2014 state capital request, which totals $299 million. That would break down as $66.3 million responsible from the university and about $232.6 from the state of Minnesota. It includes $100 million for the higher education asset preservation funds and includes 5 other projects. We then turned our attention to a very important report. I think it's one of the best probably in the country for a university. It's the Facility Condition Assessment Report. It's very thoroughly done, and the group in facilities that works on that adds some very interesting information to it every year. It's an excellent report, and I think it gives the committee a very thorough understanding of the condition of all of our buildings. We have buildings, of course, that range from Eddy Hall, one of the original buildings on campus, to the newest buildings completed, and some of them in the stage of being completed. This report gives us a very good idea of the condition and the funds needed to keep those buildings in good condition or bring them up to good condition. We have in total about 29 million square feet around the entire state in all of our facilities. 29 million square feet of building space. That's a lot of space. We've spent about $100 million a year, a little over that in the last 5 years on maintaining those buildings, but we estimate to have kept pace with where we wanted to be, it would take about $160 million. So that's an ongoing interest for the committee and an item we will work on. Next, we turned our attention to items of particular concern to the committee that come from the Plan, Performance, and Accountability Report, which is issued annually and which recently was completed for the past calendar year, for the past academic year. We looked at the idea of how to optimize the university's physical assets. The previous review of the facilities condition report was a good lead into that. We also looked at how do we ensure a safe university, and we looked at the fact that not only are we responsible for the safety of our students and visitors and faculty and staff on the campus proper, but we also recognize the fact that parents and other visitors probably look to us as a major part of securing safety in those parts of the neighborhood which are not exactly ours, but which we are very interested in. We looked also at how do we provide a very memorable experience for visitors and students who come to this place. Those are key parts of maintaining a viable university. We looked at some facts and figures. 27% of the space on the campus is devoted to office space. Surprisingly, 4% in an academic institution, 4% is devoted to classroom space. We often hear people say, gee, if you'd only figure out how to better utilize classroom space, you could make some big savings. 4% is classroom space. And from reports we also have, that 4% of the space is heavily used. So there are no major savings there. I think I see some surprised looks around even the room here. That's an interesting, we've heard that figure before, but I emphasize it because it is, it's an important one. There's a lot other going on besides just classroom work right here. We next turned our attention to the committee work plan. Some of the highlights for the year will be continuing to look at maximizing the university's physical assets. We heard one report this month. We have two more coming in October and May. We will look in December at the campus master plan, and we will begin to look at some of the planning and vision for the Rochester campus in May. We then turned our attention to some information items that are required to be presented to us by board policy. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Allen. Are there any comments or questions about his report? Regent Simmons.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. Regent Allen, what % of our facilities are for research?
33.521.
I was off by a .01.
I am not exactly sure. Perhaps someone in the audience could answer that. I'm not exactly sure of that percent.
There's a hand.
Well, if you look at our space...
Vice President Herman, would you want to briefly address that question here?
Thank you. So if you look at our recent estimates that we presented in July to the board, between 17 and 18% of our current space allocation is categorized as research space.
Thank you.
I think that's what I said, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. He was a little off.
I'll remind the board, I'll mention to the public that this is a new format of committee reports that are intended to not only inform the public about the work of the board at a committee level, but also to communicate with each other, since only 50% of us are in attendance on any given matter. So we appreciate how this has started. That concludes Regent Allen's report, and go next to Regent Frabenius' report of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. We have two action items. First is the committee unanimously recommends approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the University and Graphic Communications International Union Local 1B. The contract, which runs through October 2014, covers 6 journey person production workers, includes a 2.5% base pay adjustment for each of 2 fiscal years. This is consistent with pay adjustments for other employee groups across the university system. I move approval of the bargaining agreement.
Second.
There is a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Secondly, the committee unanimously recommends approval of the consent report, which includes conferral of tenure for 3 new hires on the Twin City campus that are described in the docket material. I move adoption of the consent report.
Second.
There is again a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this matter? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Under non-action items, first, like each of the other committees, the FSA heard an overview on strategic issues related to the university's accountability report. This review from Vice President Kathy Brown included a description of the strategic framework supporting the redesign of core HR functions across the university. She noted that this report includes data showing greater productivity with increases in both students per employee and research dollars per employee over the last several years. We also use this discussion as really a way to create a common base of information for the new and as well as the former committee members. So we're sort of starting at the same point as we take on a number of the issues that are in front of this committee during the coming year. As part of the discussion and in response to questions from committee members, Vice President Brown noted that the Office of Human Resources is focused on first improving and/or updating our HR processes, and then updating technology to support those processes. This is critical for the completion of the Human Resource Management System update, which is due to be online by late 2014. So we're really doing a lot of work to prepare for that, what's loosely called an update, which is basically a redo of the entire HR system of the university. Next, the committee had a very robust discussion of the multi-year university plan for enhancing employee engagement. And this is a process of some significance. The university's employee engagement initiative is a long-term effort that includes and starts with determining the current level of engagement using a system-wide survey tool that will be rolled out in October. We don't really know if the university has an engagement problem or what the consistent level of engagement is across the university, because we don't really have a good handle other than anecdotal on where it is now. This survey, by the way, goes well beyond the typical employee attitude survey and really is designed to measure engagement. There's been an active process of participative planning across the university to maximize participation in this survey. One of the goals is to identify successful pockets of engagement across the system and determine how those can be leveraged and modeled throughout the rest of the university. The survey will be followed with action planning support for colleges, for units, and for departments, and will provide support and tools to increase the skills of leaders and management to support high employee engagement in a high-performance organization. We very strongly endorse this engagement work, and we look forward to hearing the survey results and the resulting action plans at our February 2014 meeting. Very critical task that we're taking on here. The committee received the university's annual report on compensation. This report covered workforce trends that affect compensation, the challenges of benchmarking, and the 2013 report for senior leaders, faculty, and professional employees. And the data from for senior leaders is a result of some additional reports the Board of Regents began to require based upon a work group that looked at this issue about a year ago. Note that the report focused on comparisons of base pay, not total compensation. We talked at some length about the importance of being able to compare total compensation in the future, and there's some work on reorganizing that data to allow that to occur in a better way than we've had in the past that's going forward. The report showed that senior leader base salaries are on par or below peers. The average senior leader base pay at the university is 15% less than peer university peers and 16% less than their Big Ten peers. In this case, senior leaders include the president, the vice presidents, and the chancellors. For deans, the average base pay at the university is 6% less below the peer university peers and 8% less than the Big Ten peers. So I'll let the data speak for itself, and won't make any editorial comments about that at this time. Market pricing for professional staff employee groups is initially being done through the job family study. That job family study and reclassification process is a major ongoing task of the HR function at our university this year. And this data will also provide us benchmarks for future comparisons. Finally, the committee discussed its work plan for the coming year. We plan to tightly tie our work in the committee in the coming year to 7 system-wide human resource priorities. These priorities include supporting successful implementation of the human resource management system, achieving a job classification system that is simple, that is simple and transparent, supporting a relevant, actionable employee engagement program across the university, and improving stewardship of resources that allow us to continue to attract and retain high-performing talent. It's becoming clear that there are some unique aspects of the various employment groups within the U of M that add complexity to the process that is not seen in a typical large business, not the least of which is the large group of student workers and employees that exist within the university, who are sometimes students and sometimes employees and sometimes both. As chair, I laid out my expectations for how the committee will function. These expectations are shared by many of you in other committees, including, but not limited to, presentations that are substantive yet digestible at the appropriate governance level, that there are robust docket materials that the committee completes a review of, committee members complete a review of prior to the committee, and are working to ensure that the committee fulfills its purpose in alignment with board policy. We have a very full yet flexible plan for the coming year. Lots of items that are on agenda and will be requiring some prioritization of both staff efforts and the committee's efforts during the coming year. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chair Frobenius. Are there any questions or comments on the Finance Committee report? Regent Simmons.
Sorry, just to clarify, that was the Faculty and Staff Committee report.
No, did I say something?
That's all right. But I do want to highlight something and put a question to the President. We did show a great deal of interest and enthusiasm to see total compensation data rather than just salary data. And we, at the committee, believe that's important to understand the true costs, our largest cost, that is labor, the workforce, and also to fulfill any compensation philosophy. Where do you want to be in the market, and for recruitment, and for retention, and for being fair and just. And I just want to know if the President shares that view or has a different view.
President Kaler.
Thank you, Chair Beese and Regent Simmons. Actually, I think I do have a slightly different view on that than the one you articulated. Certainly, total compensation is important and enables us to benchmark. But salary is also important, and I believe that the data shows that particularly in recruiting new employees, those less advanced in their careers, if that's not an illegal statement to say, that salary actually matters more. And so as we are in the market during a period of generational turnover in our employee base, both faculty and staff, I think we need to be smart about what really matters in terms of that package. And my belief is that salary is more important than total compensation. And we're also in a world in which a part of our total compensation has been a health care plan that's been a very good one. And as we move into the affordable care world, that package will have to change, and so that component of compensation will be smaller. And I think we would look to do all we can to replace that with salary.
Thank you. Follow-up, Regent?
Yes, I'm not suggesting one or the other. I think you have to have salary data because that's easier to benchmark. Right. It's less of apples and oranges and zebras and everything else. It's straight dollars. So you have to have that, and that's readily achievable. We've got it. But we're asking that we also have the opportunity to look at total compensation.
Regent Frobenius?
Actually, I think we're all sort of talking the same language here, because the staff recommendation is also working towards bringing us the total compensation package. The issue that is really, I think, the point of critical discussion is how do you balance the two? And President Kaler is pointing out something that we all understand, is that in our historic model at this university, which has been slightly higher benefits and slightly lower direct compensation, you do influence the structure and composition of your workforce, and that may not be the most effective policy going forward. Right. And that's where this whole discussion ends up, and Regent Simmons is absolutely correct in bringing that forward.
Any other comments or questions on the faculty and staff affairs agenda? If not, we'll move to the report of the Finance Committee. Regent Frobenius will be giving the report on behalf of Regent McMillan. Regent Frobenius?
Thank you, Chair Beeson. Regent Simmons and I got to get away from this two committee report deal pretty quick. All right. Action items include a consent report. The committee unanimously recommends approval of the consent report, which includes the purchase of goods and services over $1 million. I move its approval.
Second.
There is a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
We had several non-action items. The committee discussed and reviewed and received information on the annual asset management report. In this report, Mr. Stuart Mason reported annual investment performance for the Consolidated Endowment Fund of the university as being 12.8% return, exceeding its benchmark by 3.9%, and adding $40 million of incremental value to the university over the benchmark return. This places it well into the upper quartile of performance when compared to hundreds of other higher education institutions across the country based upon a Cambridge survey. The best performing asset classes were venture capital and distressed debt, interestingly enough. Liquidity has improved dramatically in the last 2 years. This was an issue for our Consolidated Endowment Fund, as distributions from private investments have been reallocated to public stocks and fixed income, especially in emerging markets. Downside risk mitigating strategies have also been implemented and we continue to fund those as a priority for fiscal year 2014. Some work remains on that risk mitigation asset allocation, which Mr. Mason and the Investment Advisory Committee are addressing in the quarter ahead. All other portfolios, including TIP, GIP, and Ruminco, and we can have a little remedial session on all those needs afterwards, are doing well, and they exceeded all of their key benchmarks for the year. So we're doing well in that particular area. We also spent time on strategic issues related to the University Plan Performance and Accountability Report, much of which was composed through discussing the financial ratios that are outlined in the University Plan Performance and Accountability Report. These ratios are used by Moody's Investor Services to assist in assigning debt ratings to the institutions, and one of the university's significant goals is to maintain our current debt rating, ensure that our balance sheet and income statement performance fits with those ratios in order to maintain our low cost of debt going forward. In addition, a new composite financial index was introduced. This is a methodology used by the Higher Learning Commission that provides a more complex picture of the financial health of an institution. There's a scoring system in place here. A CFI score of 3 or better indicates positive financial health. The university's CFI scores for 2010, 11, and 12 were greater than 3 in each of these areas. And Vice President Fitzenroder indicated that it's possible to compare the university's CFI score to other institutions, and that information would be provided in the future. We looked at the financial components of the 2014 state capital budget request, which are coming before us shortly. That request is based upon a combination of funds appropriated by the state of Minnesota and resources identified by the University of Minnesota. The total cost for the capital plan is $299 million, with the university being responsible for approximately $66 million of the total plan. The plan contains projects from throughout the university, as well as our HEPR request of $100 million, which does not require the 1/3 university funding match, which occurs on other new project funding. And we discussed at some length the issues associated with getting the people excited about maintaining buildings rather than building new ones and having groundbreaking ceremonies, which is a continuing issue that we seem to have in front of us. We looked at our committee's work plan for the coming year. The committee discussed the work plan, noting that the document may be revised as the committee proceeds through the year. Items new to the committee include presentations on the annual operating budget development process, which is a really important issue, and a recent Moody's report on challenges facing higher education, financial challenges facing higher education. Throughout the year, the committee will receive updates on administrative cost definitions and benchmarking projects. The cost of mission analysis will be updated this year through our committee. The enterprise system upgrade project and our long-range financial planning process recently adopted will continue through with the committee. Tentatively, the annual capital budget and President's recommended annual operating budget and the long-range financial plan are scheduled for review in May and approval in June. That's kind of the first time we'll have an opportunity to do all three of those elements, the capital, the operating budget, and the long-range plan, looking together at the same meeting. And quite frankly, that provides a little different perspective that I think the committee will find very valuable. The committee received information on quarterly purchasing report, the annual economic development report, and the emergency approval for PricewaterhouseCoopers for professional services replaced, I'll spit this out in a moment, emergency approval of PricewaterhouseCoopers for professional services related to the replacement of the University of Minnesota's existing legacy identity management system, which is really a student identity system. So that concludes my report. Chair Beeson.
Thank you, Regent Frobenius. Are there questions or comments on this report of the Finance Committee? Thank you. In the absence of Chair Larson, I will give the report of the Litigation Review Committee. We did meet on September 12, 2013. The members reviewed the annual report on legal matters prepared by the Office of General Counsel, Bill Donahue, and a resolution was considered and passed that authorized the closing of that meeting. In the closed meeting, a discussion was held of matters that are subject to attorney-client privilege. Thank you. Next, I'll ask Chair Cohen, Regent Cohen, to report on the Special Committee on Academic Medicine.
Thank you. Actually, the committee did not meet this month. We will be meeting in October and look forward to reporting to the board then.
Thank you, Regent Cohen. Number 12 is the receipt and filing of annual report on legal matters, the quarterly report of grant and contract activity, and the annual asset management report, which Regent Frobenius referenced. So, Regents, please notice those are included in the docket. Next is the consent report, which includes 3 items: report of the All University Honors Committee, gifts, and summary of expenditures. I would entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda.
So moved.
Regent Allen moves that. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Regent Cohen. Any discussion of the consent agenda? Not hearing any. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are going to move ahead to the report of the Faculty Consultative Committee, and I'd like to invite Dr. Will Durfee, a professor of mechanical engineering and the 2013-14 chair of the FCC, to come forward and give his first report. So congratulations on your appointment, and thank you for your service. And President Kaler, would you like to preview this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just would like to add a brief word of introduction of Professor Durfee. As you know, the Faculty Consultative Committee, the FCC, is the university's lead faculty committee. It regularly consults with me, represents faculty system-wide, and is the Faculty Senate's Executive Committee. Will is the chair this year. He's a leader of the leaders, and he has had substantial recognition for his teaching, research, and public engagement. He's won a President's Award for Outstanding Service. He's been named a Morris Alumni Distinguished Teaching Professor, and he's an important organizer of our Design of Medical Devices Conference, which is the world's largest academic gathering in this area. So in that busy schedule, he is finding time to be the leader of our faculty group. I look forward to working with him this year, and I'm eager to hear your report. Welcome.
Dr. Durfee.
Chair Beeson and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to address the board and inform you about the activities of the Faculty Consultative Committee and the major issues that are of interest to the faculty. Of course, that task is impossible because the 4,168 faculty of the University of Minnesota never speak with one voice. Nevertheless, as chair of the FCC, which is the executive committee of the Faculty Senate, and which is charged to represent the faculty as large and not faculty of individual campuses, colleges, or department, I'll do my best to provide you with a brief overview of what's on our minds. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge the outstanding leadership provided by Professors Sally Gorga-Colsett and Michael Hancher, who were chair and vice chair of the FCC last academic year. And under their guidance, we had robust discussions among ourselves and with key university administrators on a range of topics that Professor Colsett apprised you of in her reports last year. Professor Rebecca Ropers-Hulman, current FCC vice chair, and I can only hope we do as well as our predecessors. Our task is easier because our committee this year has a remarkable and diverse collection of faculty who are exceptionally thoughtful. Now I want to tell you about 5 of the many items that will be on the agenda this year of either the FCC or the Faculty Senate committees that report to the FCC. As faculty, we report and are interested in matters related to our core functions of teaching, research, and outreach, and stay away from matters that are administrative in nature. Nevertheless, where there is overlap, we dive right in. So first, salary equity. Following many years of discussion in formal and informal investigations, Provost Hanson, with the assistance of Vice Provost Carney, have put in motion a plan to address salary inequities, particularly those that are gender-based. Colleges have been charged with developing procedures to determine if inequities exist, and if so, to correct them. This is important because faculty from all corners of the university are passionate about equality. The provost and vice provosts have and continue to work closely with faculty governance on the emerging plans, and we look forward to the concrete progress that will happen this academic year. Second, interdisciplinary teaching and research. A strength of any comprehensive university, such as the University of Minnesota, is the opportunity to innovate, create, and to discover in areas that combine disparate lines of inquiry. While interdisciplinary research and teaching is happening at our university, many faculty see opportunities for facilitating these activities. There are actual and perceived barriers for crossing departmental and collegiate lines to conduct scholarly and educational activities. For example, many faculty believe that the formula for allocation of tuition dollars leads to a paradigm where budget drives educational goals. This may or may not be true because the actual problem is that the university has limited dollars and there's no perfect method for allocating those dollars. Nevertheless, all would agree that the budget should serve education and not the other way around. We believe that significant progress will be made on this issue this academic year, and one reason is that increasing interdisciplinary activities is a high priority for Provost Hanson, who has asked faculty governance to work with her so that together we can make the University of Minnesota known as the place for exciting interdisciplinary work. Third, online learning. With the birth of the MOOC has come increased attention to the role of online learning, and more specifically to whether we need new or revised academic policies that account for courses delivered to tens or hundreds or thousands of students, some enrolled at the university, some not. Questions of teaching load, content ownership, revenue stream all become more complex as we move beyond traditional classroom instruction to incorporate emerging modes of teaching and learning enabled by technology and the internet. Faculty governance will be working with administrators to develop new policies that are fair and that will facilitate excellent teaching and meaningful learning. Fourth, strategic planning. As you've heard, the President articulate his vision for the strategic plan. The President has repeatedly stated that the plan must have substantial faculty input. And he has stated that as much as possible that the existing faculty governance system should be used as part of the process. We agree with that choice. And further, we applaud the choice of Provost Hanson to chair the Strategic Planning Committee because we feel the Provost is a broad thinker, and because she's relatively new to the university, she can bring fresh eyes to this project. The faculty look forward to working with her and with President Kaler to develop the strategic plan. Fifth of the 5 I want to mention is graduate education. Graduate education is top on the list for many, if not most, of the Twin Cities faculty. A strong research university cannot survive without a strong graduate program populated by exceptional graduate students. Now that we're several years into the reorganization of the graduate school, many faculty are emphatic that it is time to step back and look at what is working, what is not working, and how we could do things better. For example, we need to find the right balance between the activities that should take place at the college level and the activities that should take place at the graduate school level, and how to appropriately and equitably direct resources to support that balance. This semester, the Provost and the FCC have together appointed the Special Graduate Education Committee, chaired by Professor Scott Lanyon. And this committee, along with existing committees in the Graduate School and the Senate, will examine key areas of graduate education. The FCC looks forward to receiving their initial report in December. I want to close my report with just a few remarks on shared governance at the University of Minnesota. We're exceptionally fortunate as faculty involved in the governance process to have an administration that genuinely follows a consultative process. Our access to administrators is remarkable. We have regular discussions with the president, the provost, most of the vice presidents, most of the vice provosts, almost all of the deans, a good sampling of department heads, all of whom take their time to consult. We don't always agree on the issues, but we do share the common vision of ensuring that the University of Minnesota continues to be an exceptional institution for teaching, research, and outreach. This remarkable level of communication is the envy of our CRC peers. And speaking for my committee, we particularly appreciate the board's continuing interest, as evidenced by you allowing me to speak with you here. Chair Beeson, members of the board, that concludes my report, and I invite any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Durfee. Are there any questions for Dr. Durfee? Regent Amari.
Thank you, Chair Beeson, Dr. Durfee. I appreciate the work that you guys do. I haven't had a chance to meet you, but I know Professor Roper's Hillman pretty well. I'm curious to know interdisciplinary teaching and research. I believe Vice President Herman has started a term called transdisciplinary research and work, and I'm wondering if there's some differences here and how that might align as we look across the university with what you guys are talking about as interdisciplinary teaching and research versus transdisciplinary.
Chair Beeson, Regent Amari, I see no difference between those terms. I think as the faculty, we recognize the importance and the opportunities of having colleagues, across boundaries, and those boundaries don't necessarily exist across colleges. For example, in my own Department of Mechanical Engineering, anyone looking from the outside would wonder, where are the people designing gears? You have people in nanoscience, you have people in chemical engineering, you have biologists. And so I think we're all looking at these opportunities together, and part of the process has been and will continue to engage with the Vice President for Research on his directions in those areas as well.
Great, thank you.
Are there further questions, Dr. Durfee? Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you during this academic year. We next have the University Plan Performance and Accountability Report, and I would like to call up the Provost to the table and staff. I'll make note of the territorial charter of the university in 1851 had in there that the Regents shall make a report annually to the legislature at its regular session, exhibiting the state and the progress of the university in its several departments, the course of study, the number of professors and students, the amount of expenditures, and such other information as they may deem proper, or from time to time that may be required of them. I predict that first report in 1851 was probably not 240 pages long and probably did not contain as many graphs, charts, or metrics as they do now. So I'd like to ask President Kaler to kick off this year's iteration of the Accountability Plan and Performance Report.
Thank you, Chair Beeson and members of the board. Our annual Plan, Performance, and Accountability Report is this year, as previously, a remarkable document. It's a resource for you and all members of the university community to read, consult, and use throughout the year. I believe Regent Allen sometimes calls it the owner's manual for the University of Minnesota. It lays out in great detail, and it tells you that we do a lot. We serve a lot of people, our footprint is statewide, and our impact is deep and important. In addition to the long version, you've been handed the short version, 4 pages using 10 focused points. This mini guide is useful to explain and describe what the university is about. And if you'd like extra copies for your friends and family, we can arrange that to happen for you. I really am quite thankful for the hard work that goes into this report by staff in the Provost's office. And with that, I'll turn it over to Provost Hanson to walk through.
Thank you, President Kaler, and members of the board. We are pleased to present the 2013 University Plan Performance and Accountability Report, and really it's a collective effort of many, many offices, though the people in my office work particularly hard on this. What you have in your docket is the it's the almost final draft. We're still finding a few little typos and so on, and before it goes to print, we will, of course, correct those. We'll bring the printed and bound report to you for your approval at the October meeting. We have a number of what have been called power users of this report, people who consult the information contained in it throughout the year. President Kaler has just quoted Regent Allen saying that it's kind of the Regent's owner's manual, and in fact we remember that Regent Allen last year mentioned keeping it in his automobile trunk because it was such a useful reference. We also know that the staff members of the University News Service use it regularly as they field many media inquiries, and the Office of Government and Community Relations also relies on it. But as the initial comments indicate, if we're really being honest, reading this report cover to cover requires a robust attention span and is not something most people are likely to want to do. Instead, we expect both power users and casual readers who will be interested in select data points and specific topics. So, like any good reference book that contains a wealth of information, this report provides readers access to that information in a couple of ways. First, the table of contents lists each campus section and strategic goal subsection. These subsections have corresponding tabs on the margins of the report. Second, we have, as President Kaler noted, redesigned the highlight section. That's page 2 and 3 of the report, pages 92 or 93 of the docket materials, to provide an overview of key points for this year's report, along with page numbers where you can find supporting data and narrative. And knowing that these report highlights are what most audiences outside this boardroom will be interested in reading, we have, as President Kaler noted, produced this report as a separate version, a standalone brochure. The draft of this piece has been distributed to other meeting attendees today as well as the board. Our expectation is that you and others could use these when talking about the university with our various constituencies. Where you might not hand someone a 150-page report, you can hand them this instead. If they'd like to learn more, the link to download the full report is provided on the brochure. We're interested in your feedback on this new piece and, of course, can provide you with additional copies, as President Kaler has noted, of the final printed version. When developing the framework for these highlights, we ask ourselves, even if someone were to read this report from start to finish, what are the key takeaways? Regent Frobenius and I were talking yesterday about it not exactly having a narrative flow. But there is a story in the report. And what story does the report tell about the University of Minnesota? We think it tells a story of excellence and of tremendous progress on our strategic goals. So, for the report highlights in today's presentation, we think it's time to shed what President Kaler in his State of the University address earlier this year called our humble, kind of above-average exceptionalism. Instead, along with President Kaler, we'd like to assert true exceptionalism. Or, in the words of last year's Gopher football student section T-shirts, no more Minnesota nice. The first assertion I'll make is that we attract outstanding students. We've highlighted the increase in Merit National Scholars, in National Science Foundation Fellows. We note the rising ACT composite scores and percentages of students graduating the top 10 and 25% of their high school graduating class. But we'd like to put a few faces to these statistics. Meet Katrina Klett. She spent her early life moving between North Dakota and Texas with her beekeeping family, breeding queen bees in the south and producing honey in the north. Now majoring in the Department of Asian Languages and Literatures in Chinese and minoring in sustainability studies, Kat is studying how beekeeping can alleviate poverty and protect biodiversity in developing countries. An undergraduate research opportunity program grant gave Kat a chance to work with Dr. Marla Spivak, Distinguished McKnight University Professor of Apiculture and Social Insects, and MacArthur Genius Award winner. Spivak calls Kat, who is also the beekeeping expert for Shangri-La Farms in China's Yunnan region, the most remarkable young woman and undergraduate I've ever met. After winning 2 prestigious scholarships this spring, both the Harry S. Truman Scholarship and the Udall Scholarship, Kat will graduate next spring. She plans to pursue a master's degree in environmental science and policy at Columbia University. Sukanya Mumson grew up in Golden Valley and in high school took enough college-level courses that she already had junior status when she entered the U in the fall of 2011. She graduated 2 years later, this past May, and is now one of our first-year law students. Sukanya credits her English degree with honing the analytical and writing skills that she will need to be successful in law school. Her minor in Japanese was useful for her undergraduate internship at the Japan-American Society of Minnesota, and will certainly be an asset should she realize her dream of becoming an American ambassador to Japan. It pleases me to note that Sukanya chose Minnesota over Duke University, even though they offered what she describes as a significant financial aid package. But even such an aid package did not beat the cost of attending here, and she doubts she would have had as many opportunities available to her now if she had gone to Duke. In the end, she said, choosing the U was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Jennifer Hacker grew up in Lake Zurich, Illinois. She said that she's been planning to attend the University of Illinois since she was in the 7th grade, but she followed her parents' advice and considered a few other Big Ten schools, knowing that she wanted a larger campus atmosphere. Jenny applied to schools with strong reputations in animal sciences so she could pursue her goal of becoming a veterinarian. She says that choosing Minnesota over the University of Wisconsin may be the best decision she's ever made. When asked to explain, she writes, "My experience at the U has been amazing. I'm part of the marching band, as you can see, which has led to many lifelong friendships. I've been able to work closely with the staff in the Veterinary Medical Center doing research on traumatic injuries in felines, from which I wrote a paper that should be published sometime this semester. This research also led to a network of veterinary contacts and the opportunity to shadow in the vet emergency room. Finally, through the help of my very supportive advisors and professors, I'll be graduating this December, a semester early, so I have time to prepare for vet school. Not many undergraduates can say that they graduated summa cum laude with high distinction in less than 4 years and with a solid network of advisors in their field of interest and their name on a publication in a scientific journal." Brian Eby has wanted to be a doctor since he was in elementary school. As an honors student in genetics, cell biology, and development, he spent a year studying healthcare in Freiburg, Germany. This experience was made possible by the prestigious Catherine E. Sullivan Scholarship, which enables outstanding seniors from any U campus to spend a 5th year in another country. Brian returned from Germany this spring and entered medical school at the University of Wisconsin in the fall. We don't always mind if they go to another Big Ten school. He anticipates drastic changes in America's healthcare and insurance systems during his lifetime and believes that his time in Germany, especially his experience volunteering in the world's oldest universal healthcare system, has prepared him well for the future. You may note a common thread in these stories. When asked why they chose the University of Minnesota, students like Kat, Sukanya, Jenny, and Brian would tell you it's because we offer a great student experience. One student, Abigail Hansen, blogged about her college choice process for the New York Times. The Minnetonka High School student narrowed her pool down to Iowa State, University of Wisconsin, and Minnesota, which surprised a number of people. She wrote in the New York Times, "I guess people just assumed that with my grades and ACT score, I would be shooting for an Ivy League school." Her response to those people? This is a quote. "I have talked on the phone with and toured the University of Minnesota more times than I can count, and each time I go back, I'm astounded by what the school has to offer. The slogan, 'Driven to Discover,' truly encompasses the whole university. It has an extensive honors program, complete with optional housing and mandatory advisors. Minnesota spends more than $600 million, a lot more I'll say, every year on research, and I have a guaranteed spot as a freshman in a lab. Even the study abroad program is ranked in the top 3 in the country. I look at this list of accomplishments and wonder, what more can an Ivy League school offer me? And that great experience is not limited to the Twin Cities campus. As the chancellors made plain in the presentation yesterday in the committee meeting, you'll find similar enthusiasm when talking with students across the system. For example, in Duluth, Joe Nekwanebi found the Masters in Tribal Administration and Governance program to be, as he says, the perfect vehicle for me to learn about tribal administration and governance while still being able to commit the necessary time to stay active with my family life, my work, and my community involvement. The program, known as MTAG, was developed in consultation with area tribes and draws students from around the world, including some who fly in from Oklahoma and California, and one student who attends through an arrangement with the Sorbonne in Paris. Joe, who received his MTAG degree this past spring, was already Commissioner of Corporate Affairs for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, but he enrolled in the program immediately after receiving an MBA from the Carlson School on the Twin Cities campus because he'd like to run for tribal office someday. Samantha Zuck-Ruskow sings the praises of her experience at Crookston, from wonderful courses that made her want to get up in the morning, and instructors who are more like family and who want to see you succeed, to a variety of student activities and leadership and service opportunities. She writes, "I feel I made the best decision possible. I would not change my choice of attending Crookston." As one of Rochester's first graduates, Hannah Salk delivered the student speech at the inaugural commencement ceremony in May. She chose Rochester because of its interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Health Sciences program, drawn to its innovative curriculum and the internship and mentoring collaborations with the Mayo Clinic and other industry leaders in Minnesota's world-renowned Med City. Hannah plans to attend med school and already is working as a lab technician at Mayo's Vaccine Research Group. At Morris, Chase Gerald found an exceptional undergraduate experience, including small class sizes and a research opportunity to develop a sustainable curriculum in the chemistry program, which lived up to Morris's promise of a renewable, sustainable education. Chase notes, too, that Morris is a fantastic place to live, not only because you're part of the school, but because you're also part of the community. This is a tremendous strength of the University of Minnesota. No matter what kind of experience a student is looking for, they can find it on one of our 5 distinctive campuses. Which leads me to my next assertion. We are accessible. A key factor in many of these students' decisions was cost. Sukanya Mumson noted Duke's higher cost, and Abby Hansen cited an $18,000 difference in price between the 2 universities she was considering. Affordability is one aspect of providing access to the university, and we continue to focus on holding down tuition while increasing financial aid. But we're deeply engaged in work to ensure more students are qualified and prepared for academic success after high school. Our College Readiness Consortium collaborates with pre-K through 12 educators and others across the state toward that goal, with its Ramp Up to Readiness network now including school districts from Battle Lake to Zumbrota. In the Twin Cities, we partnered with the African American Leadership Forum and many others to launch Generation Next, an unprecedented community-wide collaboration aimed at closing the educational achievement gap, which, as you know, is larger here than almost anywhere else in the country. Turning this around is critically important for our communities, for the continued excellence and diversity of our student body, and for the state's future prosperity. And speaking of turning things around, we do graduate students for success. That's an assertion that, as we've discussed before, was not always true. As part of last year's accountability report, we noted the dramatic increase in our graduation and retention rates over the last decade. This significant improvement required a sustained and multifaceted commitment across the entire institution, and I'm thrilled to let you know that we are not the only ones to believe this has been a remarkable achievement by the University of Minnesota. In fact, the University of Minnesota has been chosen as one of 2 finalists in the nation for the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities' first ever Most Visible Progress National Degree Completion Trailblazer Award. It was designed to both reward the efforts of universities that are successfully retaining and graduating students while promoting those schools as a model for other institutions to follow. The two finalists for this award were asked to produce a video to be shown at the awards ceremony. Staff have been hard at work producing this video, and I'd like to show the just completed video to you now.
I'm working to become a registered nurse.
I want to build a company which creates employment.
My career goal is to produce for television.
Community projects or scholarship programs.
So I'd like to be a doctor.
Be involved with the YMCA through the youth development programs.
So during Welcome Week my freshman year, we received a tassel that included our graduation date on it 4 years down the road. That tassel was important to me. It reminded me of my goal to graduate on time.
During orientation, you schedule your classes and you meet with your advisor for the first time. And when you walk in, they automatically set up graduation planner. And for me, my advisor labeled it 2014 plan.
I was a first-generation college student, and I was placed into the Access to Success program. So during my sophomore year of college, I applied to the School of Nursing, and I was accepted. And then 3 years down the road, I graduated with my nursing degree.
You also signed the 4-year guarantee during that meeting, so they tell you right from the start that the U is willing to work with you as long as you work with them to make sure that you're out in 4 years.
My freshman year, I lived in a living and learning community where I was able to make some really great friends who were interested in the same topics I was. And at the same time, we were also able to explore the resources. And it was a really good way to get to know some of the larger things at the university.
I know my advisors really believe in me, and I definitely don't want to disappoint all the people around me that believe in me, so I continue because I have their support.
Financial aid has been a motivator for me to do well in school and to graduate on time.
The university has a policy where any credit over 13 you don't have to pay for, and that's helped me get through school in a timely manner because I don't have to worry about costs going up when I take more credits.
I'm excited about the future because I think we have a generation of college students who are not only getting the resources and the technology they need and the information, but they're learning to care about their community and take a greater sense of pride in engaging in the world and being a part of it.
The resources which the students have right now and the competition and the work we have to do is not like before.
And some of the student research that we have coming out of this university is amazing. And so if they're given the opportunity now, what more can they do in the future?
So President Kaler and I will be presenting at the APLU annual conference in November, and the winner will be announced. But again, we are one of 2 finalists in the country. So it's a wonderful, I think, external validation of our efforts. Something that we also received related to the next assertion. Well, we are a productive, efficient organization. Well, this year's accountability report highlights numerous examples of our improving productivity and efficiency. Both of the Spans and Layers reports from Simpson Consulting and the study completed by Huron Consulting this summer confirm that we are an efficient, well-organized institution. You'll be hearing more about these plans from President Kaler and Vice Presidents Brown, Fitzenreiter, and Studham later in our meeting. We all acknowledge that we can do more, and we will, but we are productive and efficient. I'd also like to focus on the university's sense of community, both on our campuses and in our surrounding regions. In addition to the examples we've offered so far to support this assertion, I'd like to call your attention to a few others. I did, in fact, mention Duluth's first-of-its-kind Master of Tribal Administration and Governance. The Morris campus shares in this long-standing commitment to Native American education. American Indian students make up over 15% of degree-seeking students at Morris, compared with 1% at other national 4-year colleges and universities. These students are supported by a full range of scholarship programs. But our commitment to being a diverse and welcoming community goes well beyond numeric representation and access. Equity and diversity are critical elements to achieving excellence at a leading research institution. We're fortunate to have a dynamic new leader of the Office of Equity and Diversity, a unit that last year was among the recipients of the Higher Education Excellence and Diversity Award, which honors colleges and universities that demonstrate an outstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion. We all look forward to working with Vice President Albert to enhance and continue the work of her office. You met another of our dynamic leaders earlier this year, Associate Vice President Andy Furco, when he and I presented an overview of public engagement at the University of Minnesota. The faculty and students highlighted in that presentation demonstrated that public engagement seeks to establish long-term partnerships instead of limited community projects. One outstanding example of that sort of project, one that works with the community rather than a project that does something to, for, or merely in the community, is the Resilient Communities Project, which works with one Minnesota city per year to match community-identified projects with graduate courses at the University of Minnesota. This Star and Tribune article detailed the program's launch last year and quoted program manager Mike Greco, a staff member in our Center for Urban and Regional Affairs, as saying, "These aren't just projects that make the city look good, but projects that make a difference." We are making a difference, here and around the world. The accountability report highlights a handful of statistics that speak to this assertion that we're a global university, but I want to underscore our leadership in this area. In June, members of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee enjoyed an outstanding presentation by Meredith McQuaid, Associate Vice President and Dean of International Programs. Staff within her units are well known for their expertise and provide advice, training, seminars, webinars, and consulting to university staff as well as other institutions of higher education. Their work is critical. Our future as a great university depends upon our having alliances with the best universities around the world, our being engaged in the toughest global issues, and our being sought after as a destination for the world's best students. And it's not just the future of the University of Minnesota that's at stake. We are the state's economic engine. While we back this up with numbers in the report, we also received additional support for this assertion from business leaders. In May, chief executives at Land O'Lakes, Hubbard Broadcasting, Red Wing Shoes, and iMation published this commentary in the Pioneer Press. Their bottom line: the future of Minnesota business is inextricably linked to the viability and strength of the University of Minnesota. And the key to the economic engine is that we are illuminating the world with research. We are the state's only research university. This sets Minnesota apart from many states that have at least two major research institutions, Michigan and Michigan State, Iowa and Iowa State, Purdue and Indiana. We are the state's research engine, from creating eco-friendly fertilizer using wind power, to flying robots using mind power, to telling the story of global warming using the power of music. We are truly driven to discover. All this adds up to one final assertion I'd like to add to our list. We are proud. I've been extolling the university's excellence since I returned here 18 months ago, and often worry that we don't give ourselves enough credit for the remarkable work done by our faculty, staff, students, and alumni. But in fact, not everyone is hiding their pride in the university. Here are just a handful of tweets that were tagged UMN Proud last week. They're worth looking at, very heartwarming. And a small, but let me say choice selection of people who snapped photos of themselves at the state fair, proudly declaring their love for the university. Yes, that is President and Mrs. Kaler and State Senator Terry Bonoff. Here are a few members of the Gopher women's winning hockey team. And this dad has passed his pride down to his daughter. And the list and the love goes on. I'll close with one final point, which is that we not confuse this pride and satisfaction that we've been emphasizing today with complacency. While I believe that each of the statements in this highlight section and the summary is true, we do not consider our work done. These statements could also be construed as our aspirations, and I look forward to working with you and everyone else at the U to make sure they remain true and our ambitions for the future remain strong and bold. So, Chair Beeson, members of the board, thank you, and I welcome your questions and reactions.
Thank you, Provost Hanson, and for the stories behind the report, behind the figures and the data, our people and great stories. I'll ask the board for questions of the provost on the report. Regent Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Beeson, and Provost Hanson, and all your team for all the hard work that you've done on this, and then the report itself. Last night at dinner, I was sitting next to a Regents professor who said to me, "What do you think the people in Minnesota think about the university?" And this, I think, is a wonderful brochure to have and to talk about how all the positive things that are going on in the university. I happen to respond that from the people I hear from, most of them are very, very positive and have a great deal of affection for the university. I think this will help that, improve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Regent Cohen.
Well, thank you again, Provost. We and your staff. Oh, Regent Frobenius, any final comment on this?
I sort of want to add to the laudatory comments. I too had a discussion with one of the Regent professors last night. We actually got kind of reminiscing about what had changed at the University of Minnesota in the last decade. What change have we seen in the 10 years that we've been on the board? And there is a sense of excitement and pride that has grown in this university, and it's significant, it's palpable, and it's critical. We live in this world where last year's outstanding performance is next year's minimum standard, so we always have to keep pushing on forward. But I think this is a delightful time to take some great pride in what has been accomplished and what has been evolved. We lived through a year, as we did last year, with some criticisms of a variety of things of one type or another. But there are some significant accomplishments. We have an outstanding faculty. We are getting better and better and brighter students on a regular basis. We are competitive with major institutions in this country and across the world for attracting top students. And it's a result of a collective effort that really does make some difference. So I think it's, again, congratulations to you and your team for putting this document together that helps reflect this, that continues to set us some good targets going forward in the future as we try to get better and better. But we should take some pride in these accomplishments.
Thank you, Regent Frobenius. Regent Allen.
Thank you very much. First, I want to say it's nice when you find out your words are remembered, even if it's where you file reports. So thank you very much for that recognition.
What else is in that truck?
Well, John, my staff in my previous job, when I couldn't find something, used to say, look under T for trunk. So there are lots of things in that trunk, as a matter of fact. But anyway, I think this is a great report, and I just want to say something I think I said last year. I think of it as the top part of the information pyramid, and I hope you will continue, as you've already done, but continue the work to take the summary which this document represents and make it easy to move from this document to the specific reports that underlie it. And that along with that, in following up on Regent Simmons' report earlier, that we look at reports we have and say, do they fit in here? And if not, maybe we question whether they are worthwhile, and if they aren't, do away with them. But if they are worthwhile and are not in here, we include those reports too. But just think of it in that systematic way, and look at this report as an easy access and index, if you will, to the detailed reports. I'll mention one other thing. I think it was after last year's report, I said to the members of the media down here, how valuable is this report to you? And I think one of them spoke for probably all of them when she said, I keep it in my desk drawer, and my editor is forever coming in and asking me a question, and I usually have the answer in that report.
It is a tribute to the team that works on it.
Regent Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Provost. Just a brief comment. I think the attitude and environment that exists at the University of Minnesota system-wide today is the best that I've observed in many, many years. All one must do, and I'll give 2 points, is first ask students. From my hometown, there's currently 10 in the freshman class here at Twin City campus, and I was able to visit with 2 of them last weekend very briefly, and they're absolutely amazed about the early education experience here and said it was one of the best choices they had made in their life. But second of all, referring to our Regents professors' dinner last evening, which we attended, I asked 3 faculty members of long standing, why do you continue to teach and stay at the University of Minnesota, knowing full well there's other opportunities? And in unison they said, it's the people, the confidence of the president and the administration, the caliber of students, and they said something nice about Regents too, but I won't bring that up at this time. But it's about people and the quality of people and the attitude of people and just the overall attitude that exists today within the University of Minnesota. So thank you and your staff and the president for bringing about that positive attitude of the educational experience.
Thank you, Regent Johnson.
Thank you, Regent Johnson, for those comments. It was certainly an enjoyable evening spent with those outstanding faculty. Thank you, Provost and staff. Well, next we'll turn our attention to the 2014 capital request to the state of Minnesota, and I'll ask President Kaler to begin some comments as Vice Presidents Wheelock and Fitzenreuter make their way to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is a tough act to follow from our provost. I was tempted to ask you to adjourn the meeting and end on that high note, but we have important business to do. And I would now like to bring your attention to our state capital budget request, which does reside at the intersection of academic needs, infrastructure request, and facilities condition. This request is the consequence of mission-driven principles. Those principles are to ensure student success, ensure faculty research productivity and scholarly impact, fulfill our statewide mission, protect public assets and investment, and responsibly manage the university's finances. So with that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Vice Presidents Wheelock and Fitzenreuter.
Thank you, President Kaler, Mr. Chair. We're here today to talk a little bit about the 2014 capital budget request. The board will remember just recently at the June meeting you adopted a 6-year capital plan, and effectively the first year of that plan is reflected in this request to the state. We're asking you to review this today, and we will be back asking for action at the October meeting. If I could just remind the group that there are a number of factors that go into the decisions about how to best invest limited resources to advance our mission, and our mission really is core and is reflected here. We have a number of distinct goals that we reflect on as we think about institutional investment in facilities. Certainly how it advances our innovation and discovery mission, our teaching and learning experience, but also with a mindfulness toward funding or a return on investment or a strategic investment in physical space and the impact and reputation of this institution. There are a number of issues that are reflected in our planning, and not least of which is to think about the direct impact on program, the current state of the facilities that we're working in right now to advance our mission. How do we think about a unique and competitive advantage in our field of higher education, and how do we improve our sustainability and our efficiency in our operations at the institution? We are in the process now of really the front end of the state capital request. We are presenting this for review, but legislative and executive branch tours actually have been begun. We've had staff from the governor's office and Minnesota Management and Budget here, and we'll continue throughout our system having legislative visits as well in the coming months. In January, it's expected that the governor will present his recommended capital budget to the legislature, which then convenes at the end of February. And sometime in the early, we hope, spring, we will have a resolution of that. That's a bill that's been passed by the legislature and projects approved by the governor. We will then come back at the May and June meetings for our annual capital plan and talk about how those investments translate into the annual capital plan that will be presented for your review. Here are the projects that we are talking about. These are in rank order. You'll see that our total request is $299 million. Of that, state funding would account for $232,667,000. Our top priority, as is typically the case, is our HEAPR request. The Higher Education Asset Preservation and Rehabilitation Funds are an essential component of the university's stewardship of its facilities. The funds are used system-wide, and we will generate, we are now finalizing the list of those proposed projects, that $100 million list. But the building systems funds will target roofs, building envelopes, interiors, electrical and mechanical systems, and the utility infrastructure renewal projects will address our aging campus heating and electrical distribution systems. The HEAPR projects must be used for one or more of the following: code compliance, building energy efficiency improvements, building or infrastructure repairs necessary to improve the interior and exterior of the existing buildings, and renewal to support the existing programmatic mission of the campuses. So it's important to note that this is really the preservation of the infrastructure itself and does not provide funding to actually enhance the equipment or the space to meet programmatic changes or changes in pedagogy and teaching. But these are really important funds given the age and the history of our important facilities here, many of whom exceed 50 years of age, to protect the infrastructure of the building envelope itself. Our next priority is the Tate Science and Teaching building, the renovation of the Tate building. The Tate Laboratory is the cornerstone of the Northrop Mall, literally and figuratively, with approximately 200,000 square feet of space. The building was constructed in 1926 and has been the home of the School of Physics since that time. But with the new construction of the Physics and Nanotechnology building, we can renovate the Tate Laboratory, and it will create a home for earth sciences, updated science classrooms, and the non-laboratory portions of the School of Physics and Astronomy. The large lecture halls alone accommodate more than 3,000 students in physics classes. Improvements in sight lines, the addition of new technology, and a more conducive environment for learning are all proposed. State-of-the-art space for theoretical physicists and astronomers is anticipated to support the college's expansion of adding 20 to 30 faculty over the next 10 years to meet the student enrollment in these departments. The next project is Microbial Sciences Research Building. This is a two-phase project. We are requesting $30 million of state funds for the first phase, which is a $45 million project, which will be on the St. Paul campus, additional space. There are also funds in the 2016 six-year capital plan for a second phase of this project. So the first phase will create new microbiology labs and offices for the combined use of 3 St. Paul-based colleges, CFAN, CBS, and the College of Vet Med. So this will allow for the relocation from space poorly suited for research and facilitate fruitful scientific collaboration in the shared building. This is a great example of intercollegiate planning and really thinking about moving from assigning and building space for a departmental assignment and rather thinking about the building of space for the function that occurs in the building and collaborating between colleges to assign those individuals performing that type of research that can use those attributes in a productive way. So the first phase will include site preparation and relocation of any displaced activities. It's anticipated the completion of the new building will allow for the decommissioning between the first and second phase of the project for the decommissioning of 1 or perhaps 2 obsolete buildings, which will reduce the carrying cost for the built space. The second phase will invest in potentially some expansion of new space, but also the renovation of the most adaptable lab spaces for continued research activities. The Campus Wellness Center at Crookston, this is the top priority for the Crookston campus. Crookston has advanced the addition to its wellness center as a support for student success, recruitment, and retention. To ensure academic success, the Crookston campus needs to develop rec and wellness space to serve its current student population. It is a strategic investment in maintaining the campus's competitive advantage with other undergraduate institutions in the region. The center will be a positive contribution to the campus life, and teaching and learning behaviors will conducive to healthy lifestyle. This facility will allow us to focus on those programmatic goals, programming and services that address 7 dimensions of wellness: physical, intellectual, emotional, social, occupational, environmental, and spiritual. The campus population has actually grown in the last 5 years with the addition of 2 new residence halls, and the campus population is better served when facilities can be expanded to meet all of the campus community's needs. I will add that the heart of their existing facilities is Knutson Hall, which was constructed in 1926. It has, actually when it was, predates actually, it's joining the University of Minnesota system. It has received some renovation, but it is inadequate to meet the needs of both their student athletes and their student population. The next project is the Research Laboratory Improvement Fund. This is an $18 million project cost with $12 million state share. There are a number of projects that are priorities for the use of these funds, including the B Lab, this long outstanding facility need based on current conditions and the unique research. We expect that's about $3 million of the project and is really kind of led by MacArthur Genius Award winning member of our faculty doing great work on a critical issue for our agricultural community. Greenhouses, a new greenhouse to support the learning and research outcomes would house CBS inventory, College of Biological Sciences inventory of collections and research-related specimens. That's estimated to be about $5 million. Aquatic invasive species research, these investments are needed to support a renewal of the aquatic holding facility at Engineering and Fisheries Laboratory. That's estimated to be about $6 million of the need. And there would be another $4 million available to invest in other laboratory improvements elsewhere in our system. The Chemical Sciences and Advanced Materials Building on the Duluth campus. This is a $36 million project, almost entirely anticipated to be a new construction of a building on the campus in Duluth. And this will allow us to improve conditions also of classrooms so that learning space is designed to optimize flexibility for the large lecture spaces that they have. This is a core strategic program at the University of Minnesota Duluth. We believe that this will enhance their brand and reputation and also provide the facilities to need for a growing population. They have added student enrollment in these programmatic areas, and an expansion of their facilities is absolutely essential to help them meet those needs and to address the demand for those programs.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Old habits.
It was a compliment.
This particular pie chart shows you the mix of state support and university share for the $299 million state capital request. It is a request that's consistent with past requests in terms of the state share being the largest part of it. Even though this doesn't exactly show a 1/3, 2/3 split, it's really shown this way because the $100 million request is a 100% state-funded request. The next slide shows you the breakout of our particular $66 million responsibility in terms of the annual debt service cost and an estimate of the annual operating cost for this plan. I will point out that on the annual debt service costs at roughly $4.4 million, that assumes about a 4.5% interest rate with debt issued for 25 years. However, as typically turns out on these projects, we don't always actually issue as much debt as this plan would require, because the collegiate units themselves and fundraising does step in to lower the amount we will actually issue. And of course, the state has as well set at least a preliminary agreement among the leadership is to have a bonding bill somewhere in the neighborhood of $850 million. We're going to go over, of course, and fight for every bloody penny of this request. But at the end of the day, we may or may not fulfill all of this request, and of course that will then affect the next 6-year capital plan. And with the next slide, this, of course, request is here for review, and we're ready for questions.
Regent Simmons.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. I think this is such a good set of requests. I really appreciate it and support it. I think that justifying the Campus Wellness Center is a challenge. And a couple of things I would ask if you've considered or would consider. One is using some of the existing data on how participation in physical activity, organized physical activity like this, links with scholarship and success academically. And to me, that is a part of this justification, not just recruitment and retention. The second thing is, as an academic institution, introducing a new facility like this, we should we should take advantage of to do the studies that show outcome. What's the health of the students who've gone to a school where they have access to this versus the population that doesn't? Our country is in an epidemic of obesity. It's driven by lifestyle. Poor exercise habits as well as poor diet are the big features in that. So to me, this is a real important investment in the people of the future. Learn to be responsible for your health.
Regent Vine.
Chairman Beeson, let me again congratulate you on a wonderful report. The committee meeting yesterday was very thorough, and it's been talked about already, and I won't recover that. I want to reiterate what Regent Simmons just said relative to that. The whole exercise of students today learning in the college setting about good dietary things and all of that, it's happening in K-12, but it's only further reinforced here at this level, and I am happy that this request is there, and I think it's long overdue, and the facility up there needs a significant amount of work, as both of you know. The other thing I was going to say is, this is an aggressive request this year, and it's a very well-balanced request in terms of meeting the needs of really what we need to be doing on a number of very significant items to keep us really in a front-runner position. The other thing that I would like to mention is, in my short tenure sitting on the board and now having visited all of the campuses, it really has become very apparent to me the issues of the HEAPR funds and how important it really is. And Eric in his report and what's been noted here already today, the request really should be $160 million in terms of what the total needs are on an ongoing annual basis. And the efforts that we can make collectively as Regents and the staff and the governmental affairs people to really educate the legislature in terms of their process of preserving these state assets and supporting the funding necessary to support these assets that are already in place with these HEAPR funds is very important. It certainly has now become apparent to me, and I applaud your work, and I encourage all of you and the staff to continue to tell that story, because I don't think the story is told as broadly enough and is understood probably as much as it needs to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Regent Devine. Regent Omari.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. I recognize that $160 million number as maintaining status quo, so I think we actually even need more than that if we really wanted to be up to where we should be. So I just wanted to recognize that yesterday as I was doing some math, you guys are working in a very difficult area with limited funds, and to commend you guys. The wellness point is absolutely essential, and having visited there, if we'll call it a wellness center in April, if nothing else, if we can get legislators there to see it, I think it'll be a fairly easy sell. So I want to congratulate you and say thanks for the work that you're doing in this hard time, and I look forward to seeing the priorities moving forward.
Any other comments this morning on this important topic. You'll see this back again next month for a request for approval. Thank you, presenters.
Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we identified and discussed the strategic planning process at our summer retreat, and I know the board is looking forward to an update, and President Kaler, Provost Hanson be coming up on this.
Thank you, Mr.
Floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I think in the interest of efficiency, I can walk through this slide deck with you in about 10 minutes. As you know, Provost Hanson will be chairing this group, and as needed, she and I can respond to questions. We are obviously in a time of tremendous change in higher education. We have both extraordinary challenges and, frankly, extraordinary opportunities. And so to help us focus our vision for the next decade and beyond, I have launched a strategic planning process for the Twin Cities campus. And so the question is, of course, why plan and why now? I've completed 2 years on the job. I've been around the state, around our campuses, in countless meetings with students, faculty, staff, community, and business leaders, parents, and you. And here's what I've heard, seen, and learned. Citizens are eager for the U to be good, but they distrust what we do. They think we're fat and bloated, that our tuition is too high, and that we employ far, far too many administrators. We have a large number of PhD programs, but they're of variable quality. We're improving our undergraduate experience and our metrics, as you have seen today, but the coming demographic changes will be challenging. We need to improve the medical school. Athletic success matters. We need operational improvements. We need a better connection with Greater Minnesota. We need to build a reputation that matches our outcomes. We need to improve educational efficiency, and maybe MOOCs or their cousins are an answer. We need to figure out the right usage of the right space in the right place. We're sometimes burdened with heavy consultation and elaborate processes, and we're not as collaborative as we should be. Here's where I want this university to be in 20 years and what I want us to achieve and how I want us to be known and perceived. I want a nationally prominent undergraduate program, a leading research institution, a destination for graduate and professional education, a center recognized for faculty excellence, a nation-leading healthcare provider, an athletic powerhouse with deep community engagement, world-class philanthropy, and sustained state support. I want all of that to lead up to affordable excellence. And if you distill all of those words into one, I want us to be ambitious. That's a word I think that we need to use considerably more often than we do now. And ambition is not just an earnest desire to achieve greatness. It includes the will to aspire to greatness. And of course, that aspiration must be driven by hard work and sometimes by tough decisions. Here are my goals for the strategic planning process. Overall, to increase the university's impact and reputation. A plan should be bold, inspirational, and aspirational. We are a part of a system, and the Twin Cities campus plan should intersect those strategic plans of the other campuses. I think we can focus within a 10-year vision, but identify specific action steps for a 3 to 5 year time period. We're going to do this in the context of metrics that are aimed to guide decisions and to say what we will do, and perhaps even more importantly, what we will not do. We're going to build on past initiatives, of course, but we're going to set a new vision, goals, and priorities. This needs to be my plan, but more importantly, it needs to be our plan. Campus community must own and advocate for what we do. We have to represent the broad diversity of our institution, our state, and our students. The process should be consultative. It will be consultative. It will be inclusive, but it will move along. It will be timely. We are going to use, to the greatest degree possible, existing structures and groups to provide input, and we're going to integrate these overarching plans with current collegiate and unit strategic plans such as have been completed in the medical school and the Vice President for Research's plan, and of course integrated with a long-range financial plan and build upon procedural upgrades such as the enterprise system program. So there are a lot of benefits to doing this work now. I think a strategic plan can create buy-in and ownership amongst current leaders, including, most importantly, this Board of Regents. It will give the university community a rallying point, help leverage what I hope is a shared ambition for greater excellence, create a sense of urgency, and create a common purpose. We want to deliberately choose our priorities rather than having our future decided for us by others, and there are others who might like to do that. And at the heart, create a more effective, efficient organization by aligning goals and resources with agendas. So why now? Well, we have a plan, but it's frankly outdated. And it's outdated because the environment of higher education has changed dramatically. The Transforming the U plan was created in '06 and '07, and I don't think there's been a 6-year period in which higher education has changed more dramatically than the one we've just finished. As a result, there's no longer broad ownership for previous visions, and I hear from our leadership, from faculty and staff, that they're hungry for a new direction, one that they can more effectively own. We have students who, as you've seen earlier today, are better and better each year. They're highly engaged and they're having terrific outcomes, and we need to incorporate that into our planning. We also, as you are aware, are changing a lot of things at the University of Minnesota all at once, and we need to leverage and align those in a strategic way. And we also are in a strategic environment, an external environment that's challenging. It's a national conversation of skepticism around the cost of higher education and how effective higher education is. That applies to both what we do academically as well as how we do our business operationally. Many people and policymakers, business leaders express frustration with the pace of change at the university, and we do have an opportunity with a new leadership team that is perceived as being able to drive change, to embrace that and to move forward strategically. So let's deliver on that. And here are the components as I see them. They begin with a vision, and then our mission, who we are, and then include our values and our goals. We'll develop, as a consequence of that, strategies, action plans, and ultimately metrics to track our progress. Those will then lead to annual priorities and, importantly, enable alignment of our budgets to support those priorities. So it'll take a lot of work. That's part of being ambitious. There will be a strategic planning work group, about 24 faculty, staff, students, and administrators who will gain input from the campus community. We will listen broadly. The group will identify key strategic issues, trends, and strengths. They'll draft a final report that will come to me and then to you, and I think that will be about a year from now. This is a strategic planning work group. The names listed are a spectacular, respected, diverse, experienced, highly opinionated, and of course, very smart group of this university's top talent, leaders, and thinkers. As I said, Provost Hanson will chair the group, Vice Presidents Friedman, Herman, Fitzenoyder, Wheelock, former Dean Levine, who is now in the Provost office, and Professor Durfee will form the executive committee of the group. And again, without belaboring the list, it is a remarkable collection. It is diverse and I think represents the university well. Although a year sounds like a long time, there's a lot of work to be done. So I want to execute this with focus at a very healthy pace. I will keep the board informed and engaged throughout the process. You'll review the work group's work again next summer or in the early fall. We expect the process to be dynamic and we won't stand still even as we're planning. If warranted, there's probably not going to be bright lines between completing the plan and starting to implement new initiatives. We'll start those initiatives when we're ready to get them going. So Provost and I are committed to robust input and consultation every step along the way. We are preparing a multi-pronged engagement plan that reaches people through different channels and in various ways throughout the process, the spectrum of inform, consult, and involve. And members of the board, as I mentioned in July, I cannot emphasize enough, your involvement is critical, and it will run the spectrum from being informed to being consulted to being deeply involved. I need you all to be heavily engaged in what we are doing. So let me summarize. Our goal is ambitious and bold, and it will chart a course for our future. I expect it will require some tough and unpopular decisions, and in fact, if it doesn't, it's not a strategic enough plan. We need strong executive leadership of the activity and buy-in and acceptance by the faculty. It needs to be driven in an important way by faculty ideas. It will be consultative and inclusive, but it will be timely. The work group is exceptional, and I'm excited about their involving the entire Twin Cities campus community in this process. And I will close with the observation that I think it's time for us to be more ambitious than we have ever been before. With that, I'm open to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kaler, President Kaler. I will open this up for reactions, input, questions. Regent Simmons.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. I think that this is just perfect timing. The President and Provost have been on had their feet solidly on tilting ground for a couple of years now and are ready to go. And I think the level of engagement is entirely appropriate, with the Regents focusing on common understanding of the mission, the goals, and the values, and then leaving it to the administration to carry out. My question for the President and the Provost is, will the attention and the focus that President Obama has created for higher education have any impact on how you need to plan, the priorities you'll set, the things you'll react to? And is there any reason to or opportunity to engage in that national dialogue?
Chair Beeson, Regent Simmons, that's a great question. And clearly, the President's engagement with higher education has continued to bring light to the subject. Unfortunately, driving that agenda in Washington, D.C. in this and other areas is proving to be extraordinarily difficult. So I would characterize our response or our need is to be aware of that dialogue, which of course we are. And of course, much of what he supports, particularly around linking outcomes to funding, bluntly, is something we support enormously. All you have to do is look at our outcomes, and you would understand what side of that conversation we want to be in. So the planning exercise, I think, won't be necessarily guided by that, but will enable a response as that national dialogue moves forward.
Thank you.
Regent Frobenius.
I just want to endorse lots of elements of this plan, but one thing I want to touch on today, because I just consider it important, you talk in the strategic planning goals about defined metrics guiding investment decisions and articulating both what we will and will not do. The concept of metrics and measurement come into this, and you bring that and support that, given your background, and you've brought that into many, many programs as you've come into this university. I just want to encourage you to really stay the course on that. We have a habit in this complex organization to issue planning resulting in a lot of general directional statements. And lo and behold, we always achieve that because we can take credit for darn near anything under that. And I just encourage you to continue to push and advocate, because if you're not doing this, and with encouragement from us, it will slip into those little sloppier processes. And this is a better place than that. I'm looking forward to a strategic plan that has a lot of measurable goals and a lot of measurable targets that we can be working towards.
Chair Beeson and Regent Frobenius, I certainly support and endorse that. There are some advantages to being an engineer. My wife argues it's a fairly short list, but liking data is one of them. But at the end of the day, we all have to keep in mind that we are an educational institution and we're a research institution, and both of those activities have an intrinsic level of messiness and unpredictability and nonlinearity that we can't always get in boxes around numbers. So we'll be as smart as we can be about identifying meaningful metrics, about putting in place plans to get there. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize the business we're in is not one that easily fits in a box with a number.
Rebuttal. Regent Frobenius. It's the beginning of a great conversation.
It is, and I'll just make one last comment, and I don't mean this in any way of a debate, because I agree with the point you're making.
No, I know you do.
I'm just a fan of target goals and then making the judgments along the way that they need to be adjusted because conditions change or situations don't occur. And we need to get down to the specifics of where we're talking about, because I'm convinced we're both in the same, that we just need to move closer to that effort than we have been in past years.
Yeah. No, we agree.
Any other comments this morning? It's a provocative might be a strong word, but it is thought-provoking and sets us up for the beginning of an important conversation during this academic year.
And Chair Beeson, if I might, the board, of course, as I think you all know, we have a working session involving this in October, in which we'll actually get your hands dirty in terms of outlining strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and that'll be an important consulting activity as well.
Next item, separate but related in a way, is the operating excellence implementation plan. We're really tackling some substantive issues this meeting, and this has been one of President Kaler's hallmark initiatives, and today we're going to hear more about the progress that has been made today. Operational excellence is not a project that ends, but it is really a cultural change, and I appreciate the President's adoption of this as something that any great organization works with all the time. President Kaler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You might remember that more than 2 years ago, on September 6, 2011, I convened the first meeting of our Operational Excellence Group of senior leaders and senior staff. And as I have said before, that was the first day of the first week of the first semester of my presidency. So clearly this work is important, and it is a high-level priority for me. And I've made it such a priority because I saw an opportunity at the University of Minnesota to make a difference. And we're going to do that in the umbrella of operational excellence. It's our long-term commitment to work smarter, reduce costs, enhance services, and increase revenues throughout the university system. And we're going to do that so that we can use our resources, people, money, time, facilities, to the highest purpose possible. And we have to do that because we must continue to lower our administrative costs and redirect resources to the core missions of teaching, research, and public engagement. And to guide that work, we established 4 principles. We're going to achieve administrative cost reductions and productivity improvements across everything that we do. We're going to encourage solutions at the enterprise level while reducing redundancy and duplication in the institution. We're going to promote entrepreneurialism. We're going to seize opportunities, and we're going to enhance the flexibility and adaptability of our organization. And an important part of that is to recalibrate the university's risk profile so we achieve greater efficiencies while enhancing service. And I won't elaborate on that in the interest of time, but you know what I mean. So, here's where we are so far. The successes total $32 million in annual year-on-year savings, and we've achieved about $2 million in one-time savings. These savings came from initiatives, a partial list is in front of you. Strategic sourcing in our purchasing activity, $7.6 million. Energy conservation activities, $4.6. Preventative maintenance redesign, $3.2. And the list goes on. Moving to a single medical plan examiner. One of Scott Studham's early wins when he arrived, server consolidation. Space utilization, building decommissioning. Some things like automated parking, you think, how boring can that be? Well, you know, it may be boring, but $1.3 million is pretty exciting. As you know, when Robert Jones left, we reorganized, saving that cost of that office. For the first time, we audited dependent eligibility for a health care plan, saving $1 million, and you know we merged the 2 foundations. And the list goes on. It's a pretty dramatic change. So those success stories have really driven some very positive momentum. An important part of that is our enterprise system upgrade project, about which you heard in detail at the last meeting. It's been a success because we have users engaged, we have great collaboration, cross-functional teams, we've made governance changes, and we have experienced people involved. In addition, over the past 2 years, we've reviewed and activated suggestions from previous reports. We've harvested some low, medium, and even high-hanging fruit. We've tried to listen to staff people in the front lines and put suggestions we've received into place. We've even hired a consultant or two as needed, and only as needed, to add capacity to complete other analysis. We've reported pretty regularly and fully to you, and we've been accountable to and transparent with our legislators and with the governor. We've made great progress, but we must and will do more. So here are the next steps we're going to take. We are going to reduce administrative costs by $15 million in fiscal year 2014, and that's consistent with the performance measure established by the legislature. In addition to that, over the next 5 years, we are going to reallocate an additional $15 million per year, year on year, from administrative expenses. And we're going to redirect those resources to mission activities. We're going to slow, hopefully halt, the increase in net cost of attendance, and we're going to meet inflationary cost pressures. So if you do the math, over this 6-year period, we will reduce administrative spending at the University of Minnesota by $90 million. That is an ambitious, I use that word again, but achievable goal. My real hope is to underpromise and overdeliver. And while we can do that, there will be challenges and there will be difficult decisions to be made. And some of those decisions may come to the board. We may not be able to do everything because we have challenges from rising costs caused by healthcare reform, and we need to compete for the world's top faculty, staff, and students. And we have to facilitate technology and infrastructure costs. Serious challenges. On the other hand, we have ways to be better. We have operational excellence projects that will bear fruit. We'll establish new opportunities through the strategic planning process. We are working hard on simplifying our administrative structure and process. We have important benchmark recommendations from the Huron report. And all in all, I'm excited about what we've done and about the work ahead. It's been an effective first 2 years, and I'm deeply committed to continuing along this path of operational excellence, working smarter and reducing costs while serving our students, their families, and our state better. With that, let me turn the presentation over to Vice Presidents Brown, Studham, and Fitzenreiter, who will detail for you the progress we've made on spans and layers, on the Huron report, other key operational excellence initiatives, and the reports that we will be presenting to the legislature. So, Scott, Kathy, Fitz, have at it.
Chair Beeson, members of the board, I'm going to review for you the spans and layers analysis that we've completed over the last few months. As you recall, we delivered a preliminary report to the legislature and to you in March of 2013. At that time, we looked at 4 central administrative units: finance, IT, procurement, and human resources. We, since that time, have looked at all the remainder of the units in the university, and we now have a complete report, which is university-wide, with one notation. We did not include the student employees in this report, so that you will not see student employees in the spans. And we also did not look at faculty specifically in departments, in their academic departments. As we went through this process, we ran data. The criteria for efficiency is to have broader spans than the number of layers. Simpson Consulting was our outside consultant on this and a partner in working on this. And their premise is that the number of spans, or the number of people who are reporting to a supervisor, should equal or exceed the layer at which they are in the organization. So if you're 3 layers down, then you should have at least 3 people or more reporting to you, is the translation of that. And as a result, we've gone through, we've developed some recommendations. Let me turn to the findings next. Overall, the university meets this industry-leading criteria for an efficient organization. One of the very strong things is that we are very flat. We have 7 layers or less. That's a strong indicator of a good organization. And as you look through these spans, and these are averages, and some data, if you start to add these up, you say, well, maybe this doesn't add up quite right. There are some small units that will not be reflected, but the underlying data reaches these totals. The averages are very, very strong. We have a sufficient number of spans at each level of layer. So if you think about this, what does the university's design look like? It is about 5 layers deep on average, and again, within normal ranges. So this is an example, if you were to diagram it out, how these spans and layers would look. In Simpson's words, the University of Minnesota's average number of management layers of 5.2 puts it well within a region that Simpson considers reasonable and facilitative of operational excellence. Indeed, for the size of institution of the University of Minnesota, the number of layers is remarkably low. So in summary, we have an economical organizational structure. The layers and spans of control are largely within conventional ranges. Further examination is needed of subunits that did not meet the best practices criteria, and that is both those that may be under the recommended spans, but also some where we have very large spans that would exceed the range we've been studying. And continuous monitoring is necessary. We have, the Office of Human Resources has worked with Vice President Studham and his organization. We have developed a tool that will allow colleges and units to check their spans and layers on a regular basis. We will recommend that be done once or twice annually. Our human resource consulting teams will be working with colleges to look at those areas which are outside the bounds and discuss with them whether those are appropriate, some will be appropriate, or whether some adjustments can be made. So this allows for an ongoing review of this issue as well as a very healthy report in the present. And with that, I will turn this over to Vice President Fitzenreiter to introduce the Huron report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the remaining part of this presentation, the 3 of us here will play tag team and take you through our individual components of the Huron implementation plan. As you may recall, early last summer, we presented to the Board of Regents the Huron report. And out of that report, of course, the legislature has required not only that we deliver this final Simpson spans and layers report, but that we specifically give them an implementation plan around that Huron benchmarking and diagnostic report. So what we're going to do today is take you through that report. As you know, the Huron report credited the university with undertaking many major initiatives already to promote efficiency and effectiveness. What we're going to do now is divide our presentation really into 3 sections. The final report that will go to the legislature will address ongoing initiatives that we've already started here at the university. Section 2 of our discussion today by all 3 of us will identify long-term tasks that the university will undertake based on the Huron recommendations. And then Section 3 will give us a little closer look at one of their other recommendations, and that is a recommendation to move more to a shared services model, and we'll talk about that as we proceed through. I'll turn this back over to Vice President Brown to take you through the HR section of this report, consistent with those sort of 3 buckets.
Chair Beeson, members of the committee, in the human resource world, the current initiatives you see listed are ones I hope you have seen over and over, again in the last few meetings, and even some discussion of them earlier in today's meeting. And that's good, because these are things that we are really focusing on. We're putting significant resources and energy behind them to move the dial in these areas. Of course, the key foundational areas that we're working on are our human resource management system reinstallation, a new PeopleSoft system, and our job family redesign, which will help us better understand how many employees we have and exactly the work they're doing. That leads us into a better ability to compensate and reward them. And a lot of the other things here are complementary to that, to make sure that our overall human resource system works well. If we look at the initiatives from the Huron report, they had 5 key initiatives. And one is to align our human resource programs and services with human resource strategy. And that is what we have been working on along the way. We have several areas that we can continue to examine and increase our alignment towards our strategic directions to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck in these areas. Evolve service delivery and continue to develop centers of excellence. This really comes out of the work we started about a year ago when the President said that we would have a dotted line reporting relationship between HR leads out in the colleges and units to me, and then we are aligning their work with the work that we are doing in the Central Office of Human Resources. Along with that, we have other centers of excellence in human resources, payroll, benefits, organizational effectiveness, and so all of these efforts need to be better aligned. And so there's more role definition that we need to do, more simplification that we need to do, so we better empower the people out in the units to manage their human resources well. And that really is the same as defining human resource generalist roles and accountability. Those two fit hand in glove and are addressing some of the same points. Formalizing our data integrity program is a key feature of the upgrade for us. Improving our HRMS system will also involve a formalized data integrity program so that we have better data, more reliable data as we move forward. And the final one is metrics, and this really has, I think, 2 avenues, both metrics about how well we in the Office of Human Resources are doing our work, so kind of some internal metrics on measurements of ourselves, but also broad metrics about the human resource system at the University of Minnesota and how well it is doing. So with that, I will pass this over to Vice President Studham.
Thank you, Vice President Brown. Chair Beeson, members of the board, I'm going to walk through the 2 sections related to IT. The first section, Huron made some recommendations around projects that we already have ongoing. So you'll see on here things like server consolidation, which we're largely done with. We've already recognized $1.5 million of cost savings there. The Google application suite, we've already rolled that out, but there's still some training to do. So those are projects that are in kind of the button-up phase. You look at other items on that list, such as the help desk consolidation. We're 25% of the way done with the help desk consolidation, so we still have about 75% to go. So if you recall, we started last year, there were 73 IT help desks at the University of Minnesota. So the way we're doing this is actually a collaborative process where we are doing the consolidation, but it's actually being led by folks in the colleges. So we have the IT director from the College of Liberal Arts and the IT director from the College of Biological Sciences actually leading the community in this effort. Other ones that you'll see on this list are Framework for Security and Enterprise Architecture. Likewise, that one's being done in a collaborative process. So Dr. Patton Fast is the University Enterprise Architect. He's leading a team of 16 individuals to develop and document truly high-level enterprise technology standards. So these are things like what are our ERP standards, what are our network standards, what are our data standards. That committee is actually made up of representatives from all around the campus and collegiate units. Finally, the ERP is on this list, and that's a foundational project for everything else we're doing in IT and data reporting long term. Likewise, with the other systems or the other projects on this list, it's a highly collaborative project. So these are the current ones. These are the ones that we're already doing. They're already underway. So we flip to the next page. The midterm IT initiatives. So these are the ones that we've started, but they're going to take a little longer to do. The first page were the ones that are foundational that we need to get done so we can move on to the ones on here. Create mechanism to evaluate IT investments. As I mentioned, that Enterprise Architecture Standards Committee will help us define what our technology standards. Based on that, we'll have a better ability to help reflect and provide guidance on purchasing decisions. Likewise, we've created a new governance process. You'll see on the bottom one here, refine the IT governance process. Historically, the governance, we didn't have a very open, transparent IT governance process. Each unit would make their own individual investments. And so over the last year, we've created a process where we collect broad community input to kind of come up with high overarching goals for the university. That'll help us create those ways to evaluate IT investments. Finally, the define IT roles and responsibility at all level. One of the most fundamental things that's helped us start to see how we can make progress on this is the HR job family. So Vice President Brown's work with her team in terms of going out and looking at all 1,300 IT professionals and actually looking at what jobs they do so that we can start looking at how many system administrators do we have in the colleges, how many database administrators do we have in the colleges. Last month, I was able to see that for the first time. So that, not knowing that and now knowing that now, there's been a huge shift in my ability to actually look out and look at the IT landscape and be able to provide better guidance on roles responsibility.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee in the finance area, a couple of the current initiatives that were referenced in the Huron report include increasing our capitalization threshold from $2,500 to $5,000. You might not think that's much of anything, but it actually reduces the administrative burden on departments by not having to track another 21,000 pieces of equipment. And that, in effect, saves in labor time approximately $300,000 per year. We have implemented that. Of course, it reminds me of a famous story that I got on an investigative report where I was many, many years ago. Some of you may remember about the fact that we stopped tracking office chairs and how awful that was. But it is a large administrative burden to keep track of small, low-cost items. And it is part of risk recalibration, but this is an example of efforts we've made. On the next slide, a really big success story for us is the U-Market e-procurement effort that went into production this past July 1st. We have now created a e-shopping environment with approximately 40 online supplier catalogs. This has streamlined electric orders and invoice processing. In fact, in the first month of this being in production, there was almost a 3,000 increase in electronic invoices processed. So that means nobody's got to touch paper. Just in the first month, there was a 33% increase over the prior year in purchasing on this system. So this is a great success story because people are not having to use their procurement card to buy something, which requires a lot of manual reconciliation. And instead, this is all just like going out on Amazon and purchasing and having it delivered right to your office. Those initiatives are underway and in many cases completed. Some midterm examples of items we're working on, enhancing the governance of distributed finance. That's the President's dotted line initiative. The finance side of the house has had a long tradition of that, but we're working with the users to further refine that. In the procurement area, some of the midterm opportunities, we're going to consolidate travel management authority, which is really, at this point, a little fragmented inside the controller's office, so we're going to streamline that. We're going to expand the use of electronic payables. We have today what we call a virtual payment card with vendors where you place an order, they get paid. It's done through, I believe, Wells Fargo. It's a very efficient and slick, again, electronic, no paper approach. And we're going to leverage the SciQuest product that's part of our U-Market to try to put in more contract management solutions into that product because it's flexible enough to do it. I might also tell you that in the U-Market area, we are working closely with MinSCU. They're interested in leveraging off of our knowledge and what we've done in that U-Market area. So again, we're not only improving in efficiencies and saving money at the university, we think we're going to be able to collaborate with MinSCU. And we're talking with our affiliated partner there, Fairview Health, to do similar activities. In the longer term opportunities, again, many of those are in the procurement area by increasing our adoption of travel and expense tools, fully automating the travel and expense process, consolidating more invoices and payment activities. There are still about 150,000 invoices approved out in the clusters at the university. We're interested in seeing if we can automate that and make it more efficient. The last item we want to talk about is a concept called shared services. This was also a key part of the Huron report. And this involves, for those unfamiliar with it, a way of organizing and delivering administrative support services in a separate service-oriented entity whose sole mission is to provide efficient, high-quality, and reliable services. Shared services, in turn, are used and can be used and shared by a significant cross-section or unit of the university. This is something that in some parts of the university we have already done, but if you look at this particular slide, you can see that sort of the traditional model in higher education is things are either centralized, an example being accounts receivable, or distributed, an example being budget entry. But there are opportunities in between those different approaches to do a shared service model. And we're going to pursue that opportunity, and we think we have many opportunities. But doing that, as I mentioned yesterday in the strategic financial risk when I was talking about reducing administrative costs and becoming more efficient, this approach is all about what I said then was 3 words: culture, culture, and culture. There is a lot of hard work to do in this area. It is not an easy process. It will take time. It's going to take some help. It is other universities that have tackled shared services have put an infrastructure around this and are working away at it for many years. We're going to do this carefully. We're going to, on the next slide, our approach is going to take 2 steps. We're going to focus first on non-collegiate units, and we're going to start a pilot project at the University of Minnesota Duluth. The chancellor is anxious to engage in this concept, and we're going to work closely with them, and we're going to focus on the non-collegiate units on the Twin Cities campus in the HR, IT, finance, and procurement area. Moving beyond that, after we, I think, walk the talk in Central, we'll begin looking at the same shared service model within or among collegiate units. So that's a 2-step process we'll move through. And if we want to move to conclusions, I'd like the board to know that we're already doing a great deal to reduce administrative costs. The president made a commitment today to reduce another $90 million in administrative costs over the next year. CFO kind of gulps. We're going to take both short and long-term actions, and we're going to begin to implement that shared service model where appropriate. And just one other thing that I'd like to say before we turn it back for questions is I think the board needs to know that these 3 VPs and our employees and directors and folks that work behind us and all the folks working on the enterprise upgrade project, everyone's aligned and everybody's committed to make this happen. We're working hard. There are lots and lots of people working hard to make this a success, This is going to be a long-term process. We sense that people are engaged and ready to work hard on this. And with that, I'll turn it back to the President.
President Kaler.
Thank you, Chair Beeson, and thank you three for a high-level and rapid overview of really just an enormously large number of moving pieces at the university. We are committed to making this as efficient and effective an organization as it can be. I think we are aligned on objectives, and we know, frankly, how to get this done. I will confirm that our CFO and your president are in alignment around the $90 million budget, and we will get there. In terms of a governance structure, this report was requested by the legislature from the University of Minnesota, and I believe that means it's requested from the Regents of the University of Minnesota. So I would propose and ask for, after appropriate discussion, a motion to do that, and then I'll stop and turn it back to you.
Thank you, President Kaler. Before I ask for such a motion, the board's own alignment between having identified this as a priority and then working that into our work plan and committee activity. I'll ask the chairs, committee chairs, to look at this list and make sure that all the initiatives that are identified and that staff's working on are showing up in your committees at the appropriate time, the appropriate place, so that we do have full alignment as they move along and as we deliberate. Regent Lucas.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. As a new regent, I'm often asked what is going on at the university, and I'm always struggling for an elevator speech. And operational excellence challenges that goal to come up with an elevator speech, and I agree with the CFO that 90 million is a gasp. But I've heard enough today to believe that we can do this without sacrificing excellence, and I'll look to all of you to help me with that elevator speech.
Thank you, Regent Lucas. Other comments? Regent Omari.
Thank you, Chair Beeson. Regent Lucas, I just tell people this is the place where dreams come true, and it usually works. I had the opportunity to have a outing with some of the people that I work with, and I asked one of the IT people about this project, and I was shockingly surprised to hear how much he knew and how much he could detail and how supportive and excited about this project that he is. So on the ground, it's happening, and people are ready to move it forward, and they're confident about it. So thank you for your work. Look forward to the future of it.
Regent Devine.
I too would like to just echo what's been said here by the two other regents and comment the fact that we're moving forward. We've really addressed very efficiently here this last year the issues that have been put before us. We've got an aggressive plan. It's been well thought out. The execution of it has begun very efficiently. And I might comment that, yeah, the number is a grasped number, but I also want to reiterate the fact that this is freeing up funds for further investment in the institution in other many very important areas to make us a leader here in the state, and I think to set a tone within higher education overall across the country. So I applaud the efforts of the administration and all of those of you who worked so diligently to put this plan together in the way you did and present it to us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Simmons.
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain it at this time.
Yes, proceed.
I move that the Board of Regents commend the administration, approve this report and plan, and ask the President to share it with the legislature. The Board of Regents is the governing body of the university to which the administration is accountable. We are pleased the legislature takes great interest in how effectively the university manages its resources to fulfill its mission.
Second. There is a second to that motion. Is there any discussion? Regent Broad, are you there? I'll ask for, there's a motion, and is there a second then? There was, I'm sorry. It's getting late. Is there any further discussion? Regent Frobenius.
I support strongly this action and am very happy that we're doing it. This process is a little cumbersome today, and I just want to make this comment about it as we're talking about efficiencies of the organization. And I'm not sure which of this packet of stuff that was just thrown on my desk I'm being asked to approve. And I mean, I'm aware of the content of some of it through the activities of my committee, but I just make a little subtle suggestion I can't resist doing as we're talking about efficiency. This idea of just throwing bunches of paper at the board at the last minute and saying approve it is something that needs to be thought through just a little bit. We can and should do better than that. And so, and that's not really being critical of the president, more being critical of ourselves. But I am familiar with a number of this through both my work on the Finance and the HR Committee. I know that the HR part of this stuff is an extremely aggressive agenda that is requiring an enormous amount of work. I think the IT stuff that we're working through also falls in that aggressive order. So with this effort of our commitment of the board to communicate this to the legislature, it's our commitment to provide the support and endorsement and encouragement as our leadership drives this process through the University of Minnesota.
Thank you, Regent Frobenius. Any other comments? I will now put this for a vote. All those in favor of the resolution proposed, say aye. Aye. Those against? Motion passes. Any old business today? New business? Thank you, everyone. The meeting of the Board of Regents is adjourned.